This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Swing and a drive, a rocket toward the gap in right center. That's going to get down off the wall. Victor on his way to third. They're going to wave him. Here he comes. Throw to the plate. Is up the line. Welcome back, Lars Nootbaar, an RBI double. Nootbaar unloads deep right center field. Tronic wall. Welcome back, Nootbaar. He turns the game around lefty-lefty.
That's what it sounded like on Cardinals TV over the weekend. Lars Nootbaar officially back with the team, and boy, did he make an impact. You heard the double in his first game back, the pinch hit home run on Saturday, and impact yesterday as the Cardinals sweep the Cincinnati Reds with 2 comeback victories and take all 3 of them to wrap up that 9-game homestand. Welcome everyone into BK and Ferrario alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, who is in with us this week as BK is out in New York, which, side note for everyone, the BKO apparently struck.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see his text to us?
Well, I originally didn't know what he was talking about because I'm like, I don't think the Cardinals are in a rain delay.
It was like 90 and humidity
And I
here.
remembered he was in New York.
Yep, he went to the Red Sox-Yankees game. We talked about it on Friday, that Aaron Judge got an injury right when he found out he was going to the game, and then he's like, the BKO's going to hit. And he was in a rain delay at Yankee Stadium. So it travels wherever he goes. But luckily, he was out of St. Louis because the Cardinals picked up the win. And T-Bone, I couldn't help but notice. I was out there on Friday at the game. I had the chance to be down in the clubhouse, get some Lars Nootbaar audio, talk with Oli Marmol. When Lars Nootbaar walked into the clubhouse, it just felt different. They were joking around with him about being the grizzled vet on the team, which is crazy to say, but he really is when you think about tenure and age. You could see everybody's reaction to Lars Nootbaar. You saw it on the lineup card. You heard Oli talking about it. And then he goes out there and he makes his presence known. 3 for 10, had 2 runs scored, hit a home run, 3 RBI, struck out 3 times, also walked 3 times. Lars Nootbaar noticeably made that lineup feel different. Now, we only got one taste of what I believe the lineup is going to look like on a consistent basis when he's healthy and everyone else is healthy, and that's Lars hitting 5th because he hit leadoff in that first game because of J.J. Weatherholt not being there. Didn't get the start on Saturday because obviously with the amount of time that he has missed, they wanted to be cautious and slow play it. But he provides punch. He provides the ability to get on base. He provides energy, which is very important, and he brings that defense back to the left field position that they've just been kind of churning through guys since Nathan Church was gone. That is the type of presence that this lineup has desperately needed. We've talked ad nauseum about 1 through 4 and how beyond that you're just not getting guys that come through, and it felt a little bit like that yesterday where how many guys they left with runners in scoring position and left on base and couldn't get them through, but Lars Nootbaar's presence extends this lineup and gives that danger beyond 1 through 4.
Yeah, I think watching him take those at-bats over the weekend, I know you only saw the lineup the one time, like you said, and it was on Sunday where they're going to have it constructed 1 through 5 the way they want. Man, just watching even Friday, Saturday, it's like, it is so good to have a professional hitter back in this lineup. And like that, I'm sorry to take a shot towards Nolan Gorman, but Nootbaar just provides a different at-bat, right? And I like Brian Torres, but he probably should be hitting more in that 6 through 9 than be in that 5 spot. So just having Lars Nootbaar back is just going to make this lineup feel deeper. And especially now that they're getting more reinforcements, which we'll talk about a little bit later on today. But I just love the fact that now I can at least say, all right, I feel like you're going to have at least a league average, if not hopefully more towards that 15% above league average hitter in that 5 spot with Lars Nootbaar, and that's going to be a huge boost to this lineup because we talked about it last week when I was in prior to I was off on Friday, where it was, 1 through 4. This is awesome, right? Walker, Herrera, Weatherholt, Burley. Wow. And then you get 5 through 9. It's like, close your eyes. Go to the bathroom. Take a bathroom break. Maybe go get a beer if you're at the ball game. And now with that 5th batter in Nootbaar, it just feels different. And that's what they really need. If you've got 5 guys hitting the lineup, and then maybe you can get a little bit of more better production as they've started to churn through the roster 6 through 9, now you're talking about a lineup that's going to be able to play. And the way that the pitching's been pitching of late, that feels like a team that feels like a playoff team. Because when you look at playoff lineups, 1 through 5 is where you're going to have to see some serious damage and see a really good team, and that's what the Cardinals have with Noot back in it. You're talking about a lineup that's going to have potentially 5 guys 10 to 15% above league average at a minimum, and boy, that is huge for this offense.
Oh, and Alex, the way in which you were able to integrate him into the lineup in the first 3 games, it's perfect. He leads off actually on Friday. JJ still sidelined at that point in left field, moves to center field late on Saturday after that big-time home run, and then yesterday getting the run at DH. And if you actually look at the body of work, what he has done in spots in the order throughout his career, other than the leadoff position, yeah, he's been the catalyst there in 185 games. But if you go to 5 or 7 in the order, and make no mistake about it, that is exactly where Noot needs to hit for this team beyond the first 4. The OPS, the ability to slug, and even when he wasn't reaching base, guys, against the Reds, courtesy of the base knocks, what was he doing? Displaying that patented eye once again, drawing the 3 walks, everything that he projects as, everything he does, to your point, Tanner, as a major league caliber hitter, lengthens your lineup and makes you very, very enticed as far as what you could see a couple of weeks from now when everybody is clicking on all cylinders.
You know, T-Bone, when you were out, we talked about this on Friday of Lars Nootbaar's return, and BK read through the comments from a lot of people on your guys' Redbird Report section because you talked about Lars Nootbaar's return. And
was it good?
No,
Excited?
It wasn't. It was kind of like mean tweets. Like everybody is so looking at it as, guys, Lars Nootbaar is an average hitter. Guys, Lars Nootbaar is not going to come back and make that significant enough an impact. I'd rather keep Jose Fermin in the lineup. That's what some of the comments were that BK read through. And we talked about it at the time. This isn't as much just about getting Lars Nootbaar back and putting him in the left field position because, like, you know what, you're probably going to be fine on the defensive side of it. This is talking about guys like Brian Torres, Jose Fermin, Nolan Gorman. Nolan Gorman had taken the bulk of your at-bats at the 5 spot this season. Like, he was the number 5 hitter for the Cardinals all season long, essentially. And look at what his numbers are with runners in scoring position. That's the problem with what you had versus what Lars Nootbaar provides. So having Lars Nootbaar back gives that threat in the 5 spot, pushes guys down, because now, depending on who's playing, you still have a decent chance with an at-bat of a Torres or Fermin in the 6 spot. And now, look at what the lineup was on Sunday with Nolan Gorman. They put him in the 8 hole. That's probably best where he is belonging right now, because now you have the threat and you can push them back. So Lars Nootbaar is going to be, and this was something that he was talking with the media about on Friday in his scrum. He's like, you know, I'm not 100%, but I am back to where I feel comfortable and I can continue to perform. And Ollie made it very, emphasized it to the point that people understood. It's like, look, he's not back here because we think he can go through the training still. He's here because we think he can perform. But Lars pointed out that as the season goes on, I'm going to feel stronger and stronger and stronger. So like he said, by September, hopefully, I'm feeling at my best. That's the benefit of what they're getting now. You're still going to get an impactful bat. You're still going to get a guy who can make a presence in the lineup that is going to continue to improve as the season goes on, which is a dangerous thing to have for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I think when people hear us like talking about Nootbaar and I guess raving him, and they get frustrated, because I agree, look, he's not a savior to the lineup. But I'll add this, I don't think the lineup needed a savior. Yeah, the offense had been scuffling, and they had scored, I think it was like 3 or fewer runs in like 10 of 15 games, something along those lines. But they didn't need a savior, they needed a boost. And what I mean by that is, we talked about this on, I think, Thursday last week, where when you look at their running and scoring position numbers, they're terrible on the season. But it's not 1 through 4 that's been bad. It's 5 through 9, which had been bad. 1 through 4 has been good with runners in scoring position this season. 5 through 9's been awful. All right, well, now I can basically cut that from 5 through 9 to 6 through 9 because I'm adding Nootbaar into the 5 spot. And look, I'm a believer that if you're going to be in the lineup and playing every day, that means that you have to produce even if you're fighting an injury. It's what I said on Kyrou this season when we would have that conversation with BK. I think there's some fair criticism towards Nootbaar last year towards that. But look, this guy was clearly not healthy, and he was still only 5% below league average. We see guys when they're not healthy, looking at potentially a Nolan Gorman, who's dealt with back issues in the past, that fall off a table with their bat. If Nootbaar is healthy, my expectation is he's anywhere between a 113 OPS plus and a 124. And to your point, I can go from a guy that is anywhere between 15 to 20% above league average, where Gorman was 25% below league average. Yeah. That's almost a 50-point swing that we're talking about. So, yeah, is he a savior to this lineup? No. Did the lineup need a savior? No, they needed a boost, and they got that from Lars Noot over the weekend, and then that's my expectation as he gets back into the rhythm of things. He's really going to help uplift this offense.
And they'll continue to get boosts. We're going to talk about that more coming up here in just a minute, but real quick, have we already seen one team kicked out of the NL Central conversation or the playoff conversation? I'm not talking about the Cardinals, if that's what you're wondering, T-Bone. I'm talking about the Reds. So the Cardinals sweep them. They're 9.5 back of the Brewers, which, by the way, the Brewers just continue to roll. Just make sure everybody remembers when BK said nobody believe in the Brewers.
Not winning in the playoffs, though.
No, of course not. Maybe not the World Series, but they're going to win a round. But the Cincinnati Reds, because of that sweep, 9.5 back of the Central, but more importantly, 2.5 back of the wild card race, as the Cardinals have moved themselves up 2 games in that top wild card spot. I personally feel after watching them, and I know they're dealing with a lot of injuries, especially with Ellie De La Cruz, who's a massive piece of this, but I don't think the Cincinnati Reds are in this conversation. I think they were already at the beginning of the season kind of teetering on the, hey, do we sell? Do we buy? Where will we be in this? I think you could kind of write off and put your eulogies out there for the Cincinnati Reds, and now you're down to just 4 teams in the NL Central.
I'm with you. That Reds team stinks. And good on the Cardinals, by the way. I said this on the Redbird Report last week's episode. This was the chance to potentially kill them off.
Yeah.
And good on the Cardinals for taking advantage of the situation at hand, where you're going up against the Reds without Ellie De La Cruz. As you mentioned, they've got a ton of injuries on the pitching side of things.
And their bullpen's been awful this season.
Their bullpen's terrible. So good on the Cardinals to make sure they took care of business and were able to just go full on, do the Army quote, right? Take the knife and jab it through the brain and kill them.
Yep.
That's what they just did. Because you look at the Reds, they're slowly in free fall, and their schedule doesn't get any easier. They go to the Padres, have the Diamondbacks, have the Mets, at the Yankees, versus the Brewers, at the Pirates. That's their month of June, and the Cardinals were able to take advantage of it. And by the way, I don't know if you felt this way over the weekend. It's one of those things you don't really appreciate until you watch bad baseball. The Cardinals playing fundamental baseball is just enjoyable, and we don't talk about enough because, oh my God, the Reds were terrible at it over the weekend.
That throw at third base on the bunt by Scott, oh my God, that was terrible.
The Reds committed 6 errors compared to just 1 for the Cardinals in this 3-game set. The Reds walked 19 guys in this series compared to 8 for the Cardinals. The Reds were 4 for 29 with runners in scoring position. Cardinals 9 for 38. Cardinals outscored them 21-11. In the bullpen, to your point, how bad it is, they allowed 11 earned runs compared to the Cardinals 1. Oh my gosh, was that just a beat down by the Cardinals?
If Terry Francona had hair, he'd be pulling it out in that series. But good old man, but that's got to be rough for him to watch. So the Cardinals get the sweep against the Reds. They are off today as they begin a road trip that will take them to New York to take on the Mets and to take on the Minnesota Twins starting on Friday. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. You could join in on the conversation via our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. Also, our YouTube chat. The Graveyard is up and running. Go over to our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, and you could join on the conversations there. Studio Cams brought to you by the Air Alliance team. We just got this text from the 636. Guys, why is Victor Scott still on this team? Well, he's not. Newsflash, he is not. As it sounds like Nathan Church is going to be making his way to New York to join the team against the Mets. Why are they doing that now? Well, it's something we talked about in spring training that I was frustrated they weren't doing. We'll discuss that next here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So Tamar Scher of Camo V reported yesterday that the Cardinals have optioned center fielder Victor Scott II to Memphis. He did not travel with the team to New York. And then about 3 hours ago, Jeff Jones reporting that Nathan Church is going to be activated from the IL as the corresponding move ahead of tomorrow's game against the New York Mets. So Victor Scott reportedly headed to Memphis, and Nathan Church, who started his rehab, if I'm not mistaken, T-Bone, on Friday last week, or Thursday it may have been, where he started, where he was playing center field for Memphis. He's played basically all the way up through the weekend, played yesterday, came through okay. Sounds like he's joining the team in New York for the Mets. And look, this was bound to happen. And we've had these conversations for the last couple of weeks of, what's this roster going to look like when these guys start to get healthier? What's this going to look like when you get Lars Nootbaar returning? We wondered if Velasquez would be the guy that goes down, and then maybe Torres, and it was Thomas Ajayce, who they just need to get proper at-bats in the bulk of work. It's not about a specific position, I would imagine. This is just, hey, go hit, because we need you to be a right-handed bat for us at the major league level, not a pinch runner. And I think the same sentiment comes down to Victor Scott, T-Bone. Now, over the weekend, he came through for him. Yesterday was a big moment. The one thing we've griped about with Victor Scott is, dude, if you can't even lay down a bunt, what are you offering to this team? And yesterday in the eighth inning, he lays down that bunt to move the runners over. It causes the Reds to look like the Benny Hill music, to where they're throwing the ball all over the field, and he beats it out for a fielder's choice. And, of course, the Cardinals go on to score 2 runs and win that game. That's what they need. But really what they need is they need Victor Scott to start hitting the baseball. You can't just be a bunter. You can't just be a defensive first player. Where the Cardinals are at with their team and how they have to play to perfection, you've got to make contact. You've got to be some type of threat for them. And with Nathan Church, he is that. Now, he's not a world beater that when he steps onto the field, you're expecting him to go 3 for 5 with 2 home runs in the game. But he's also a guy that is not batting 194. That's a minus WAR this season. Defense isn't really raising that for them. And as T-Bone just mentioned, his on-base percentage is better than the slug.
Ouch.
His on-base percentage is 276 and his slug is 258. An OPS plus of 55. That needs to go to the minors and get some work. And I don't want to sound hypocritical here, T-Bone, because at the beginning of the season, I said, look, no more sending guys to the minor leagues. Let them stay at the majors and figure it out. To me, that applied for guys like Walker and Gorman, who have been here long enough that need to go figure it out at the major league level. And it's worked for Walker. It hasn't worked for Nolan Gorman. We're talking about 1 full season of Victor Scott at the major league level. He falls more into that camp of, hey, man, you're not getting the success at the major league level. You got to go find your swing down in the minors, because if you're a part of this team, you've got to follow through. And the one thing that we complained about at the beginning of the season, or at least I complained about, was you're not even rewarding the internal competition. Velasquez outperformed all of these guys in camp, and you're not going to give him the roster spot? Man, they're doing that now. They're looking at players and saying, hey, man, he beat you out. Nathan Church has performed better. He can play the same position. You need to go down and figure it out. Pages, Jimmy Crooks has done it. We need to let him work here. So, JC, Torres has beat your spot, man. The internal competition is being rewarded, which good teams, in my opinion, do.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there, because, look, with Vic, it just wasn't cutting it, because there wasn't anything that you could point to and say this is his tool that helps him stick around or stay in the lineup. Because you mentioned his defense. His defense hasn't been as good this year. It's not even good enough to help prop up his WAR to be above 0. He's a negative in the WAR department. Because, look, his bat, I knew his bat was never going to be probably anything to write home about. I know we flirted with the idea of, like, could he steal 70 bases on opening day? I was pretty skeptical on if he was going to be able to get on base enough to make that happen, especially hit for average. So I'm not even really upset about the bat. It is a lot worse than we expected. You can't be at a 55 OPS plus, in my opinion, and expect to be in the lineup unless you are like the best center fielder in all of baseball. And he wasn't, right? So there was just nothing to point to. And I think by them sending him down to AAA, it does show you that the Cardinals still believe in him, because they could have decided to keep him on the roster and be in the role like you were just talking about, which is, all right, late in the game, maybe we want to pull Lars Noot for defensive purposes, and we go Church in left, we go Scott in center, or maybe we need a pinch runner late in the game, and we'll put him on and maybe try and steal a base and score late in these games. But there was no way to get him at bats.
Yeah.
And by sending him down, they still believe in him. And we forget a lot about Victor Scott. He never really saw AAA.
No.
Right? The original plan was, okay, in 2024, I think it was, okay, we're going to make sure that he goes down to AAA, and then Ish hit the fan because Carlson got taken out at the end of spring training there, and Walker injures him. So then they have to bring him up. He has only played, so far in his career, 82 games at the AAA level.
That's not a lot.
And what did he hit?
He did not hit at
210.
AAA.
Thank you.
210 with a 597 OPS. And that, him skipping that step of development is a thing the Cardinals have been trying to avoid with a guy like Joshua Baez, as we talked about in spring training and with their pitchers as well this season. So I can't help but wonder if that is a big part of what's gone wrong for Victor Scott. And now you can send him down there. He can play every day. You can continue to work with him on things he needs to do at the plate and see if you can kind of get that bat to be somewhat serviceable. Will he ever be a league average hitter at the major leagues? Probably not. But can you be kind of what Nathan Church is, which is about 20% below league average? You can live off of that if you're the St. Louis Cardinals. 10% below league average, which is what Church is. You can live off of that. You just can't be as significant of a black hole, which he was, to this Cardinals lineup. And I love what you said about the competition. I love the way they've been kind of trimming off the fat of the roster. Because over the last, 2 weeks, I would say, they've gone from Pedro Pajes is our everyday catcher to Pedro Pajes is the third catcher. And we're going to call up Jimmy Crooks, and we're going to start him.
And they've stuck to that.
We have called up Nathan Church, or we've activated Nathan Church, Could we keep Vic? We could. But Jose Fermin can play, maybe not Gold Glove defense in center. He's serviceable, and he's been hitting. Yeah. Brian Torres, can he play center field? Maybe, maybe not. But he's at least been an interesting bat. He gives us competitive at-bats, and he's hitting. Yeah. And then you look at what else they've done. They decide, you know what, we're going to increase Hunter Dobbins' role. We're going to keep him around. Even though at the time I disagree with it, their plan worked out perfectly over the weekend. And now they're going to a six-man. Oh, by the way, Thomas Ajayci, we called him the backup shortstop. You know what? We're going to make Jose Fermin the backup shortstop, and we're going to send down Thomas Ajayci because he's not hitting.
And they've kept Velasquez at the major league roster because he's hitting.
I love what they're doing.
There's this, I do too, and this is credit to Chaim, because I felt like there was a narrative that we were worried about, that, Chaim Bloom has this tendency to be a really cautious decision maker, to where he's going to really think things through and let it play itself out. Man, he's not been doing that. We waited a month and a half before he made the decision to bring Jimmy Crooks up, but he let it play itself out properly to get the at-bats that you needed from Jimmy Crooks to say, okay, this guy's ready to go. That's the part that you give a lot of credit to Chaim Bloom. He'll make the decision if it works, and he thinks it's the right time to do so, but he also strikes when the timing needs it. And there's also this misconception of they need offense, right? Go get more offense. Man, also look at the roster decisions that they're making. Yes, Victor Scott is an incredible defensive player, but he can't hit. Nathan Church can provide that same defense, but also be a slight uptick on the offensive side. Thomas Ajayci wasn't hitting and not great defensively. You can play Jose Fermin in a bind and give you really good defense. Same can be said about Brian Torres. They've got all of these pieces that can also provide adequate defense for them. Because the one thing that they have to do, you either have to hit or you have to be perfect defensively. And yes, Victor Scott is great defensively, but you've got Lars Noot who can play left field now, as well as Torres and Fermin. And now you're going to have Nathan Church who can play that center field position, which kind of leads me to the question that you asked in the office, T-Bone. What does Nathan Church need to do to lock down that center field position? So for you, does he have to perform immediately to be like, Nathan Church, you get to keep the job?
I think for Church, it's what he was before going on the IL. Can he be a guy that's going to hit for a little bit of average, 247, which is where he was at prior to the injury? And can he provide a little bit of thump to the bottom of the order? I don't think he's going to be an on-base guy because he just doesn't take walks. but can he provide a little bit of power? And his 672 OPS, 9% below league average, that's good enough. And the reason it's good enough is, I know, one, I think this matches the eye test, but two, talking with people around the Cardinals from when I was down there during the Cubs series, they view Nathan Church as about equal with Victor Scott defensively in center field. And I'd argue he's probably a little bit better, not so much with the range, his arm. His arm is a cannon out there in center field. So if he can just do what he did at the plate prior to the injury, be somewhere in that 7 through 9 in your order, providing a little bit of thump and playing good defense in center field with a cannon of an arm, that's a guy that I'm willing to write and pen as my everyday center fielder for the rest of the season. Now, if he starts to really go through struggles and falls off of a cliff, all right, we'll get back to having a conversation. But I think that is just the mark that he's got to kind of set.
I don't think he's got to do anything right now. I think the next person that can take his job from him is Victor Scott. At least for now. They don't view Joshua Baez as their center fielder. I think they're fine if they want to play a Fermin or a Torres there, but it's not anything to where it's like, oh, yeah, they could play there long-term for the team. And I don't think there's an appetite to play Lars Nootbaar in center field. You want to keep him as healthy as possible, as we saw the impact. So I think right now, Nathan Church, you get a runway of center field. Now, I don't know how long that runway is going to go. Maybe it's 2 weeks to get Victor Scott some confidence. Maybe it's a month to let it play itself out so we can get more at-bats at the AAA level. I think once Nathan Church steps on the field tomorrow against the New York Mets, I think his runway begins for that center field spot to where a bulk of this is going to be, hey, man, your bat's played. Keep playing incredible defense for us because you're the guy that can take down this spot until Victor Scott figures some things out.
And frankly, it would be a different situation entirely if we hadn't witnessed a Gold Glove caliber defense from Victor Scott II in 26 so far. But Tanner, to your point, you talk about going from somebody who was a plus 17 and outs above average from that standpoint last year to just plus 3. And when you couple that with the grave hitting difficulties for me, guys, it's really a matter of Nathan Church settling in somewhere between the guy who was able to mash 5 home runs for you in the month of April and the guy who was able to hit 262 in the month of May. If he settles somewhere in between with the well above average that we've seen demonstrated from him so far this season, that's going to be more than good enough for you. And oh yeah, the fact that now you don't have to worry about putting him even at 5 or 6. He can slide down to number 7 or so with ease because of Lars Nootbaar.
So again, Nathan Church expected to join the team when they take on the Mets tomorrow night as Victor Scott is headed to AAA to play with the Memphis Redbirds. In 15 minutes, we're going to get to questions and answers. You send us the questions to our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll answer those coming up in 15. It's 11:34. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. But coming up on the other side, this Stanley Cup final, I think from the outside was like, oh, the Hurricanes, the Golden Knights. This series has been incredible from start to finish, and boy, do they have a big decision to make prior to tomorrow night's game. We'll touch on that, and Mitch Marner potentially already locking up some hardware next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. Join me and 101 ESPN on Thursday from 3 to 5 o'clock at Paymore in Maplewood. They're new to the St. Louis area, and Paymore is a great way for you to sell, recycle, or buy electronics. And this Thursday, you'll be able to get 10% off all in-store purchases. That's right, 10% off of all in-store purchases at Paymore in Maplewood. Plus, you can enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open. They've got 2 locations, one in Baldwin, another in Maplewood. And that's where you can find me from 3 to 5 o'clock on Thursday. Check us out. Get that 10% off all in-store purchases. They're located at 3212 Laclede Station Road. That's Thursday from 3 to 5 with me and 101 ESPN. Get all the details right now at 101ESPN.com.
NBA Finals are on ESPN. Tonight, Spurs and Knicks. Pregame at 6:30. Tip-off at 7:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN. Sports Center.
Reds botched their chance to salvage series finale. Good morning, it's Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. A defensive meltdown in inning number 8 yesterday cost Cincinnati dearly. St. Louis capitalizing on 2 Reds errors and seizing that 5-3 victory plus the sweep at Busch Stadium. Lars Nootbaar going 3 for 10 across his first 3 tilts of 2026. Tomorrow the Cardinals visit those last place Mets. UFL playoffs, Louisville takes down Ricky Proehl's Battlehawks 29-20. Top receiver Hakeem Butler held under 40 yards. NBA-wise, 101 ESPN features Spurs-Knicks action. Game 3 tonight. Tip-off unfolding shortly after 7:30 p.m. The Sports Center update has been brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So I don't blame anybody when they saw that the Stanley Cup final matchup was against the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights. Carolina plays a boring brand of hockey to where it's defensive-minded, right? Like they're low-scoring games. And Vegas is a team that I think a lot of people hate, but it's one of those things that, yeah, okay, like you'll see them there, but I don't think it's something that gets you excited the same way Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Matthew Tkachuk had for the last couple of years. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. This playoff series has been everything but boring. I mean, it has had 2 comeback games, one of them resulting in a victory for the Carolina Hurricanes. They didn't get it done on Saturday, which, God, I was hoping they were going to. They had come from behind a 6-goal deficit in 2 of those games. All have been high-scoring. You've seen a goaltender pulled. You've seen a hat trick. You've seen a penalty shot. It's got physicality. It's got highlight reel saves. This has been an all-timer in terms of playoff series. And the feel of it right now is this thing is going 6 or 7 games. It's just a matter of who comes out on top. I really thought that if Carolina pulled off that comeback victory on Saturday, this series might be done in 5, because it's hard to push yourself back into a game after you give up 2 leads that result in a total of 6 goals. But Vegas found a way to get this one done, and now I think the biggest decision that they have to deal with before tomorrow's game, which you'll be able to hear right here on 101 ESPN, is do they go back to Frederik Andersen or not? Because they yanked him in that game on Saturday, and Bussy came in and stole the show. This playoff series has been fun, which is why I like seeing fresh blood in the Stanley Cup final, because you get outcomes like this.
Yeah, I was the person that you first said where everybody was like, hey, everybody's going to find this Stanley Cup final kind of blah, because Carolina doesn't really have star power. I mean, we kind of talked about it with Curbs leading up to the Stanley Cup final, and they've got a bunch of really good players, but they don't have what I would say is like a superstar, right? Meanwhile, Vegas, they do on that side. Like Mitch Marner's a superstar. Jack Eichel is a superstar. I would put Stone in that conversation because I feel like every time I watch him in the playoffs, he has a big moment, right? Like
well, he doesn't really show up in the regular season.
That's because he's hurt on the IR while they manipulate everything. But this thing's been everything that you could ask for, because you're right. It's had a little bit of everything. It's had the drama. It's had a little bit of history to it. Like Marner, that hat trick was the fastest hat trick in a Stanley Cup final game in the history of the NHL. I think he scored 3 goals in like a matter of 6 minutes, which is ridiculous. And he almost had a 4th, by the way. So that's insane. You get the drama of the goaltender change where they pull Anderson, and Carolina comes back in this miraculous 3rd period down 4 goals when most teams would say, you know what? Not our night. Let's save some energy. We're only down 2-1 in this series. Carolina says, hold our beer. We're scoring 3 goals in 39 seconds. Oh, and then we'll score with less than 2 minutes to go to tie it. And then it forces double overtime. Every game's been a 1-goal game. If you're the NHL, for a Stanley Cup that didn't have a ton of juice to it, in my opinion, coming into it, you couldn't ask for a better series so far, because the first 3 games have been awesome, to where it's going to help boost up their ratings, because I think they were going to naturally be low with Carolina being in it. But now that there's been all these headlines surrounding what the Stanley Cup Finals has been like, it's going to boost up those ratings. And to your point on the Anderson, I would change goalies. Now, that doesn't make me feel good if I'm Carolina that you're making a goalie change in the middle of the Stanley Cup Final. But you couldn't ask for a better series so far. Meanwhile, you look at the NBA, and we'll see what happens tonight in that game. That one to me was
might
more
be done in 4.
That one was more anticipated, and the games have been very good. But it's trending towards the Knicks could just walk through this in 4 games, which I was not expecting.
Speaking of Frederick Anderson, though, was this guy not supposed to be that impenetrable force last round? Oh, wait, that was Montreal. In all seriousness, though, I am interested, Alex, to see from a psychological perspective what unfolds tomorrow night, because we've referenced so many people have made this fact readily available. Obviously, it's just the 10th time overall that you've had the first 3 games in a Stanley Cup final decided by a single point. Having said that, Carolina, which had been perfect, 6-0 if I'm not mistaken, in games heading to overtime, finally has been solved in a manner of speaking. This Hurricane squad under Rod Brindamore obviously is wired to be able to withstand the adversity, get back to it. But by the same token, you think about the ebbs and flows, and also given that Vegas now is able to have McNabb back on the blue line, didn't have to miss any time, I do wonder if the pendulum, especially given those goaltender difficulties, Alex, starts to shift a little more in favor of the veteran Golden Knights here.
Yeah, I would play Anderson tomorrow. And I can understand the idea of not doing it. Anderson wasn't good in the first 2 games against the Montreal Canadiens, 762 save, 833 save percentage, and then went 846, a shutout, and then 958 to push out the Montreal Canadiens. I think I stick with my guy. I'm going down with the captain's going down with the ship, and the guy that got you to this point has been Frederick Anderson. But the other side of the coin with this one, and you know, it's hard for me to argue it, but T-Bone brought up, as Mitch Marner already locked up the Conn Smythe. He gets the hat trick, which, by the way, did you hear his comment about the penalty shot?
No.
He didn't know that they changed the goalie on the penalty shot. So he approached that penalty shot like it was Frederick Anderson, and it was Brandon Bussey, who I believe catches with his other hand. So that part was just funny to me. But he had a hat trick in that game. He's got 28 points. It's 8 more points than the second most point scorer, which is Jack Eichel. He's got 10 goals. Has Mitch Marner officially locked up that Conn Smythe trophy with or without a Stanley Cup championship? My perspective on this is it's always so hard to win it unless you are just night and day better than every single player in the postseason. Like when McDavid got it 2 years ago. He had 42 points in that playoff series and only 8 goals. He was better than everybody. Mitch Marner has been the best player in the Stanley Cup final. He's been a really damn good player for the Vegas Golden Knights, but man, Brett Howden has been great for Vegas to get them to this point. What's he got, 12 goals?
13,
13, I think is what he... So I don't know if he's locked it up. I think if Vegas wins the Stanley Cup, it's going to be hard for somebody to unseat Mitch Marner, plus the narrative of Mitch Marner winning the Conn Smythe if they win the Stanley Cup. Oh, God, Toronto may crumble. On the flip side of that, though, I don't know if he wins it if Carolina wins the Stanley Cup. Jordan Staal has been awesome in this playoff series. Stankoven's been great. I think the narrative switches if Carolina wins the Stanley Cup, and somebody is going to be talked about on that side as being the best player.
Yeah, unless somebody like a Taylor Hall goes on like this unbelievable run and that's why they end up winning it, I think it's his to lose, even if Carolina comes back in this series. I mean, if you look at the overall numbers, yeah, you're right. He's not first in the playoffs in goals because it is his teammate, but he does have 10 and he's tied for second, and he's not too far behind him. He's got 18 assists, which leads the NHL playoffs, and 28 points, which leads all players in the NHL playoffs. Taylor Hall, who leads the Hurricanes in points in the playoffs, has 17. He's 11 points behind him so far. And that's why, like, even if Taylor Hall ends up going on this tear and Carolina comes back and wins, I'm assuming Marner's going to put up points still while Vegas is falling apart. So I think no matter what, unless there is just this unbelievable run from somebody on Carolina, I think this is Marner's to lose, even if they lose the Stanley Cup final. And he would be the second player in recent history to do it because, like you said, McDavid did it just recently. I think he's been that good. Right now, it's not been on the McDavid level because, like you said, what was it, 40 points? I mean, he was 42. Ridiculous in that playoff run. But he's going to be fairly close to that. I would be shocked if he doesn't finish with at least 35 points in this postseason. And if that's the case, like, there's just nobody on Carolina that deserves it more than Mitch Marner, even if they come back, in my opinion.
I love this playoff series, man. Again, I love fresh blood, especially on the Carolina side. Plus, I dislike Vegas, so when you get that villain, you root against them, which gives you that much more of a rooting interest. But also the way Carolina plays, man, it's what you want your team to be. Relentless, even when they're down by 2 goals, mentally tough enough to pull themselves back into the game. They're a fun team to watch, and you get game number 4 in Vegas right here on 101 ESPN tomorrow night with pregame starting at 6:30, puck drop beginning at 7 o'clock, and you'll hear the Knicks and Spurs game 3, which is back in New York as they lead that series 2-0 tonight. Pregame at 6:30, tip-off is at 7:30. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, so there's a setback for Ramon Urias. What does that mean for the plan at third base? We'll talk about that, but coming up next, you send us your questions to the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll answer them next year on 101 ESPN.
Be a part of the show. Text the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN. Back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat over on 101 ESPN STL. The Graveyard, you could join in on the conversation there along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's start with this one from the 314 that carried over from the previous segment. Does Mitch Marner playing this well make you rethink Jordan Kyrou?
Doesn't for me, and it's twofold. One, I admit that when you trade Kyrou, chances of him getting back to being a 30-goal scorer are there, and I fully admit those. I just don't know that it's going to happen again for him here, right? And I think you're just at a point where both sides need to move on, and I think Toronto was kind of there with Marner. Now, I think it was more Marner was tired of being the guy thrown under the bus by the Toronto media when he actually performed in the playoffs prior to just this postseason run. But the other thing is like, as much as I like Kyrou, I admit Kyrou's not Mitch Marner, right? Like, he's not that guy. Could he maybe go on this kind of a postseason run? I guess it's possible. I wouldn't bet on it today, so I don't have any concerns that if you move on from him, he's going to go on this Mitch Marner type run.
You know when the last worst season for Mitch Marner was?
Last worst?
Like, the last season you'd look at and you'd be like, oh, that was not a good season.
Ooh, I feel like he's good every year.
1920
rookie campaign
17-18, his second year in the NHL. He had 69 points in 82 games. We'd take that right now because what did Kyrou finish this season with?
40 something, right? Because he was less than 50.
He had 22 goals and 47 points. This is what he's done since that season. 94 points in 82 games, 67 points in 59 games, 67 points in 55 games, 97 in 72, 99 in 80, 85 in 69, and last year, when he was with the Maple Leafs, 102 points in 81 games. Mitch Marner and Jordan Kyrou are not the same player.
That was also the only season in which he was even remotely close to being a negative in his career. Yeah, when you talk about...
he was a plus 18.
Boom. The distributive qualities, same position technically or not, Jordan Kyrou has never been viewed through that lens of being an elite distributor. Mitch Marner was that in spades, regular season or not, for years on end.
Well, and like that bad year, air quotes, for Marner. His second year, that's a guy just learning the NHL. Like, we see that all the time across the league. Yeah. What you don't see very often across the league is 30-goal scorer, 30-goal scorer, 30-goal scorer, and then drops off a cliff offensively, unless it's a guy that's old on the aging curve. Kyrou's not there, and that's where it just screams change of scenery.
And I think a lot of people will use the argument, I know BK would use this one, is like, well, look at who Kyrou played with this season. Last season, when Mitch Marner was playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs, he was playing with John Tavares. He wasn't playing with Austin Matthews. He was playing with John Tavares. Now, Tavares is an incredible player, better than a Pius Suter or Dalibor Dvorsky, but I just... There's a tier, and Kyrou's not even close to that tier of Mitch Marner. Marner's never been a bad player. They just got frustrated with him. And I'm not saying Kyrou's a bad player, but he had a bad season, and you start to wonder if he can get back to that level, and that's just something we're just not too sure about. From the 314, did you guys see what the Cardinals' top international signing has done in his first week of DSL play? 3 home runs and a 2,000 OPS. Shortstop, of course, or short sample size, of course, but definitely earning the Dominican nickname Aaron Judge. How much do you care about an international signing who is doing this in his first week of play?
First week of play, it stands out. Do I care much about it? Not really, because I want to see what it looks like as we get a bigger sample size.
Right.
But it is an interesting one to monitor because that is something that was kind of Heim's first task, right? Was going international, trying to improve the international signing department. And if he's found another one of these hits here for the Cardinals, and again, it's so young in this kid's career, but that would be an area that we've talked about where the Cardinals needed to improve. They were not very good on the international market when it came to international amateurs. So if this is an area where he starts to improve the organization, that would be another sign of him catching them up on the times.
I need to pay more attention. I've been on clearly Baez watch. 5 more hits, guys, over the weekend. Ooh.
Yeah, get excited, but also calm down. It's not happening anytime soon. From the 618, did you guys see what the report of what the Philadelphia Flyers were asked to trade for Robert Thomas? This actually just popped up a couple of hours ago. Apparently, the report was that the Blues told Philadelphia if they wanted Robert Thomas, they had to trade Porter Martoni, who is that young sensation that came over from college that looks like he's already going to be a stud, Jack Nesbitt, who's a 12th overall pick, who's a centerman, and then a first-round pick for Robert Thomas. It doesn't surprise me one bit. This is why he wasn't traded. Because they said if you want to get him, you are going to have to pay a hefty price. And we'll get more to this in the 12 o'clock hour, but this is why I'm under the belief that he's not going anywhere, so people can calm down on that one. Dirk Diggler's unit. Do you guys think Crooks is getting enough starts?
I mean, I think it's been what I expected from him. I think this is kind of his role. I think the thing that's kind of hurt them at times, and is just they don't want to play Crooks against lefties right now, which makes some sense to me. And that's why you're seeing the start number be a little bit lower compared to what it was for Pius. But I think it's fine right now. I think this is kind of what they want to do, and it's what their plan was. So I have no issue with the amount of starts that Jimmy Crooks has gotten. And it's not like he's putting up incredible offensive numbers. Now it's a small sample size, but if he was tearing the cover off the ball, sure, we could make an argument to play him against lefties, but he's not right now, so I have no issue with it.
Yeah. And you'll have plenty of time as well. There isn't another beyond today idle date for this team until June the 20th, correct? Right before that Kansas City series.
Start
so
11-11, I think is what it is.
You're going to face more than a fair share of righties from New York, from San Diego, obviously. So just bide your time accordingly.
He's gotten 4 starts since they called him up against the Cubs. So What are we, 2 weeks? So March 30th, or no, May 30th to June 8th. That's what? 10 days, 11 days, and he's started 4 times already?
They're using him as a pinch hitter, too, to help kind of offset some of those at-bats like they did on Saturday, where they pinch hit.
He's appeared in 5 games. He's appeared in all 3 of the series and 2 times in the 2-3 series. So
ideally,
I'm good with it right now.
Ideally, they're going to go to the same rotation that they had with Ferrer, where he'll catch, see if I can do this off the top of my head. I always leave out a starter. He'll catch Libby, May, and Leahy, because Herrera's McGreevy and Palante. Yeah. So ideally, that's what they'll do, except they've run into a lefty in some of those starts. And when that happens, that's where they'll put Pages in, but they're not going to just have Crooks sit on the bench. They know they're going to pinch hit for Pages at some point, and they'll bring Crooks off the bench to do that. So I think they're handling it fine.
Yeah, he hasn't been buried. That was the promise. Yeah. They felt up to it.
Look at what he did on Saturday. You came in later in the game and you got 2 at-bats. I think that's plenty of use. All right, the final one here from Artificial Unintelligence. If Florida gives up 9 overall in a package to deal for Dylan Larkin, do the Blues have to trade up to get a top 3 center? I don't really know what they have to do with each other. I guess they're asking, like, the Blues aren't going to be able to trade for a center, so they're going to have to draft one. I would say no. First of all, this is what we talked about on Wednesday after we talked to Curbs about how, like, look at who Dylan Larkin put on that list. Minnesota, Minnesota, Vegas, and Florida. Now, to me, I think Dylan Larkin put Vegas and Florida on there because he knew Detroit wouldn't make the trade. I think this is Dylan Larkin telling Steve Yzerman, I want to go play for Minnesota. You're not going to make a deal with either of those teams because you're not getting anything back that you want, so move me to Minnesota. I think that list is going to expand. Otherwise, if I'm Yzerman, I tell him to go take a hike. You're playing for Detroit next year. But, yeah, I think if you want a second-line center or another centerpiece with Dalibor Dvorsky, you absolutely can trade for one because you're not going to go to the same status level as Dylan Larkin, and you've got 11 and 15 if you want to make that move, or you move up in the draft. But the problem is, I don't think there's a center that helps you in the next 2 years in this draft unless you're drafting Caleb Malholtra, and you're not drafting Caleb Malholtra. So I think you can do it. It's just you're going to have to be aggressive with your draft picks, and I just don't know what the appetite is, and I don't know who those centers are on the market for the Blues.
Yeah, I don't think it was Larkin or bust for the Blues this offseason to upgrade the center position because we've talked about there's some other opportunities for them. Now, how many are there to help them in the near term, to your point? It probably is just 1 or 2 potentially out there. That's potentially Shane Wright, McTavish. But they can also try and target in the draft if they're going to play more longer term with this. So, yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't just, okay, it's Larkin or bust when it comes to upgrading the center position. They still have a couple of outs that they can explore because they've got 3 first-round picks this offseason.
Friedman just said this on the Fan Hockey Show. Steve Yzerman could just say, no, I'm not doing it, and you can sit
I've seen a lot of people say that.
Yzerman's not going to be bullied into trading you where you want to go.
And I think to your point on the Panthers in Vegas, it's going to be very tough for those two teams to make it work. And if this is a play by Larkin of I want to go to the Wild or it's just or nothing, Yzerman will say, well, that's fine, because I've seen a lot of people say the Wild may not have what it takes to get a deal done.
Yeah,
and if that's the case, then if you're Yzerman, okay, fine, we'll hang on to you. And if you want to keep playing this game, we'll wait till I think his contract becomes a modified no trade in 2 years. Yeah. And then if you're still pouting about it, guess what? Now you have less control and I can make a move.
Sit for 2 years and then I'll trade you when I can. So that's the fun part about hockey. Yes, these guys have a lot more power where they can try and force trades, but it comes down to the general manager that says, I'm not trading you in this scenario. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, Ramon Urias had another setback in his rehab stint. What does that mean for the third base position? And are any of these external candidates interesting to you? That's next here on 101 ESPN.
The Redbird Report. Your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Welcome Welcome back into BK and Ferrario alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. It's 12:08. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. So as we know, the same rehab stint that Nathan Church went on, Ramon Urias was on. Started on Thursday where he was playing third base, continued through the weekend. And yesterday, Brendan Schaefer of KMOV tweeted out that Oliver Marmol described that Urias is now dealing with a left elbow issue similar to the one that the right elbow landed him on the IL, so it'll be a bit for his return. He rejoined the Cardinals so that he could get some x-rays and imaging done on that elbow over the weekend, which essentially means this timeline is now delayed even further of Urias returning to the Cardinals, which presents some interesting decisions for the team when it comes to third base, or I guess lack of decisions is a better way to frame this one, T-Bone, because I've already seen the amount of people on our Air Comfort Service text line saying, why is Nolan Gorman still getting at bats? Why is Nolan Gorman not headed to Memphis? I don't know if this is going to make people happy. Probably not. The Cardinals don't have other options to play third base right now. Like it or not, Blaze Jordan is just not a third base option for them. They shifted him to first base and DH. They stopped playing him at third base the last couple of weeks. I believe the Cardinals don't believe that he can play third base defensively at this level. And they need a third baseman to make plays and have the right decision-making ability at the major league level. Because, again, this team has to be perfect defensively if you want to win games like they have been winning. So he's not there. So right off the Blaze Jordan conversations. So now your options are Gorman, who has not been good for you, but at least adequate defensively.
He's only in a 3 for 45 stretch.
Not that big of a deal.
48% of the time.
I know. That's a weird thing to say on top of what I said with Victor Scott of like, hey, man, if you can't hit, you can't play.
Well, at least they had an answer there.
They do.
The run's coming. It always does.
You've got Brian Torres, who has not played third base for 2 years and has not done it at the major league level. You've got Jose Fermin, who can play it for you in a pinch. I don't know how comfortable you are with the defense at that position. And then you got Sajasi, who was just sent down, and I don't think they're going to do that rodeo again where they just bring him up to play that position. So the option is Nolan Gorman. And I think the Cardinals are just going to view this thing as, look, yeah, he's not hitting well. Yeah, he's not performing. We need to finally just make the decision of Nolan Gorman is not going to get there. And that's not going to happen until the end of this season. They're not going to decide in June that Nolan Gorman can't hit, so send him down and be done with him. You don't have an internal replacement for that position. So in their eyes, I would have to imagine, it's just my theory on this, they view this as, look, yeah, he's not hitting, but right now, if everyone else is hitting and he can provide us good defense at third base, we're in a good enough position that we can still remain competitive. And as the games go on, we'll find substitutions if he's not hitting, like they did last night with Nelson Velasquez.
Yeah, when I saw this news of Urias, I just went, oh, man, Cardinals fans are going to hate this because I think Gorman is the answer right now. And I agree with you. They just don't have an internal replacement to replace him. And the hope is that you start to get some production from the bottom of the order with Church coming back, Noot helping out in that 5 spot. You can kind of mix and match a little bit. Maybe Crooks can start to hit a little bit more. And if that starts to happen, it takes a little bit less of the pressure off of Nolan Gorman. Not like he's under a ton of pressure right now, but yeah, I think they're kind of stuck with him because they just don't have anybody that can play the position every day. And I think to your point on with Blaze Jordan, their actions spoke pretty loudly. The moment Crooks got called up, they shifted him right back to first base to play him first base/DH. That's clearly how they view him. So they don't want to play him at third base. Fermin's played it 9 times so far this year. You might be able to sprinkle in a couple of starts for him. I wonder if that's what they might try here, is they may try and platoon him at third base with Nolan Gorman. So when you see a start against a lefty, maybe Fermin gets that start. But I think they would prefer to keep him in kind of the super utility roles we saw over the weekend. And Torres isn't that guy. I mean, Torres, he's played in his career 50 games at third base, but it's just kind of spot starts here and there. So I don't think he's the answer at the position. And they don't want to bring up Sajasi yet. They want him to go down and try and get everyday at bats. So we'll see. Maybe he eventually becomes an option for him. And we saw the Prieto experience for very small runway, and it wasn't impressive. So it's a long way of saying yeah, you're just kind of stuck with Nolan Gorman right now, even though he's in the midst of a terrible slump. The hope is that he can just figure it out. But I think right now you have to continue to throw him out there and just hope that somehow he's able to figure things out at the plate.
I'm not saying the long-term answer exists on the Major League roster. I think clearly we know that is not the case. But why can't it be in the here and now, okay, moving into the latter part of June, why can't it temporarily be a Jose Fermin? Why can't it be the guy who's hitting 375 this month? Why can't it be the guy who consistently gives you quality at-bats, works the opposing pitcher, and never, ever looks lost at the plate? The only reason as to why he has 14 at-bats while playing third base this season is because he was a part of that left field configuration. You no longer have to worry about that. You're taken care of with the return of Noot. You have Tuch coming on, presumably, to set up shop in center field. I'm not just talking about playing him against right-handed pitchers, but if this is somebody on whom you can rely and whom you can rely to at least play a competent third base, and we've talked about the internal competition, right? On the current roster. He has made a case to deserve more ABs, to deserve more reps. If you're rewarding that accordingly, then I could honestly envision worse scenarios than riding with a guy who seems to have it figured out right now at the plate and seeing what the defense presents to you for the next couple of weeks. To me, that's not an issue.
I'm with you there. Like, I'm fine with it if you want to go with Jose Fermin. Just the way I look at it as Nolan Gorman is just not a bench option. I mean, like, you're not going to use him in any spot. So essentially, you're just putting him on the bench and not playing him.
True.
And it'd be hard to figure it out at the plate at that point.
You've already got a Nelson Velasquez who is solely a pinch hitting option. Brian Torres is probably a better pinch hitter. So if you put him on the bench and Jose Fermin's your third baseman, Nolan Gorman is just essentially the Joel Pozo role to where you're never using him. And I think they're viewing this as, look, we're just going to keep throwing him out here and he'll figure it out at some point. And if he doesn't by the end of the season or even at the trade deadline, then you go down the path of it's like, all right, cool. Let's see if there's an upgrade elsewhere. Somebody mentioned, could Jordan Walker play that spot? Absolutely not. You're not moving him from there. Somebody mentioned J.J. Weatherholt. You're not taking him away from second base. You're keeping him at the spot that he's comfortable with right now. I don't think they view this as we have to fix this position. I think with Lars Nootbaar back, I think having the options of Fermin and Torres, they've got guys who can hit. And if you're going to move Nolan Gorman down to an 8-hole position, man, I'm not worried about that. If Nathan Church can come up here and start to hit the Victor Scott, we're talking about one black hole area. And I think they're okay with that as long as you give them good defense.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is the important part, which is they don't view this as a must-fix right now. And the reason they don't view it that way, one, they're in a rebuilding year. Now, I think they're kind of slowly transitioning into, as BK said, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Which is
rebuild
a tough spot to be in.
Trying to compete because they're the first wild card if the playoffs were to start today. But I think it is, look, if the Cardinals lose baseball games, odds are it's not because of Nolan Gorman. Mm-hmm. If they lose a baseball game, the odds are it is, okay, the pitching probably didn't hold up well that night, or the top 5 in your order didn't hit.
Yep.
So it's not like this is Gorman's hitting cleanup and he's not coming through with runners in scoring position and he's constantly striking out. If you have an 8-hole not hitting, well, let me show you 29 other teams that have an 8-hole that's probably not hitting this year. Well, maybe not the Dodgers. So 28 other teams that have an 8-hole that's not hitting. And if they had an internal replacement, I think they would do it. I mean, as we've seen, we talked about it at 11:15. They've been willing to churn through the roster and say, all right, Scott didn't do enough. Boom, Church is here. He's ready to go here. And this from his time before the IL stint. Pages, hey, your role was defense. You're not doing a good enough job at that. And we've got a catcher that's hitting down the Myers. Boom, we're going to bring up Crooks. I think if they had an internal option, they would have made the move already. They don't believe it's Fermin, and I think it's partly because, one, I like Fermin. Not sure he's an everyday guy. As we saw yesterday at shortstop, probably would prefer to keep him on the right side of the infield, not the left side of the infield. And the third piece would be what you're saying. If you're going to bench Gorman, it's because of his bat, so he doesn't have a roll off of the bench. And then you're really just kind of admitting this experiment's basically done, and now we're in this awkward spot where we're holding him on the bench. I get where you're coming from, Bradford, because you are right. Fermin probably is more deserving of the starts right now at third base, but I think there's just other factors playing into this to where you have to keep with Gorman for now.
But then also, how much does Fermin get exposed when you're using him every day as a third baseman and he's taking 4 at-bats compared to where he's a pinch hitter to where you know he's going to make contact?
I'm solely talking about the present. I'm solely talking about what you could do on the road to maximize your current rate of play. You've won 4 in a row. You've won 6 of 9. We talk about balancing that, right? The current results with the growth for the future. I'm not delusional here to think that Jose Fermin is going to be part of the core in a couple of years. But if you are rewarding those internal guys for what they have done to this point, and he's hot, ride with him.
Well, and the other option is external. And we'll get deeper into this in terms of the trade deadline conversation, because between Bob Nightingale and I know Ken Rosenthal mentioned something on foul territory, it sounds like there's some interesting conversations taking place. But Josh Jacobs on Redbird Rants put this out over the weekend of external options if they're looking to upgrade the third base position. Royce Lewis from the Minnesota Twins is somebody he brought up, and Isaac Paredes, who is with the Houston Astros, formerly with the Chicago Cubs, is another option that they brought up. Do any of those names interest you, T-Bone, in terms of, hey, get aggressive and go fix the position for the now?
So Lewis is an interesting one. I think I would pass on him, though it is an intriguing option just because he's had trouble staying healthy in his career. So that doesn't really help you.
Also not hitting well.
Not hitting well this
season.
year. He went down to AAA and hit, I think it was 10 home runs in a very short span, which is impressive. So maybe he's found something.
Just returned.
Isaac Paredes is interesting. Like, I like it, but I think it's one of those where the Cardinals wouldn't do it. And the reason I say that is, think of Isaac Paredes' career and how everybody's like, wow, this guy's 20% above league average. And then all you hear is, hey, we're looking to trade Isaac Paredes. And I don't think that's anything to deal with him in the clubhouse. He's just bad defensively. And I don't know if the Cardinals are willing to go with a bad third baseman for offensive upgrade like that. I think they want to stay very defensive sound on the infield. So I like Paredes. Would the Cardinals have interest? And he's got another year controlled at like a $13 million team option. I don't think they would. I think both those options they would probably pass on. I think they would be more likely for Royce Lewis than they would be Paredes.
Yeah, I think if they're looking for an external option, they're looking for a guy who can fill that spot for them in the longer term rather than just for a year. They're not in the position to get a placeholder for the year. I think they're looking for an option that they could use for years to come, kind of like where the Blues are at. Like if they're trading for somebody, he's got to be under the age of 26 that fits into their timeline. That's where I think they would be at rather than just going to get a placeholder as any of these guys truly are. But again, we'll get more into the trade deadline conversation because, yes, that has already started to pick up for the Cardinals. But coming up next, speaking of the aggressive decisions by Chaim Bloom with the internal competition, there's another one. As an example, it's going from a 5-man rotation to a 6-man rotation. Can Hunter Dobbins pitch his way into the Cardinals' plans the rest of the season? That and this bullpen continues to find a really good, successful run. We'll get into all those next year on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So the new blood just continues to take over for the Cardinals. When you think of Jimmy Crooks, Nelson Velasquez, Brian Torres, and now Hunter Dobbins, along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. I can't even tell you how many times we've talked about the opportunity of going to a six-man rotation. And every time we discuss it, it feels like it just gets killed off pretty quickly. Of like, nah, it's just not going to work. They'll stick to their routine and find ways to get this guy work. Well, that tune is changing for Hunter Dobbins. On Friday, it did not go well for Kyle Leahy. He pulls out of the game in the fourth, and then Hunter Dobbins steps in and goes 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. That's building off of his previous appearance against the Cubs, where he went 3 2/3 with 4 hits, 1 earned run, which was a home run, and 4 strikeouts. And now, because of how well he has performed, the Cardinals are shifting to a 6-man rotation because this week, it's going to be Dustin May on Tuesday, Andre Palante on Wednesday, and Hunter Dobbins gets the start on Thursday, which essentially means you're just pushing back Kyle Leahy's start because of that off day, which makes a ton of sense. But the question now is, how does Hunter Dobbins play into the plan moving forward for the Cardinals? Because I don't know where you fall on this, T-Bone. I don't expect the 6-man rotation to last very long. It's just the routine side of things. How does this look? Yes, you're getting a little bit more time off for the bullpen, but are you getting more work for the bullpen?
I think this is they do it once because there are 11 games in 11 days, so it keeps everybody on their normal 5-day off routine between starts for the most part, because that's kind of how it works nowadays in baseball, with the off day basically guaranteed a week. So I think it's just a one-time through scenario.
How much of this, though, is tied to Kyle Leahy? Because it's just not gone well for him in his last 3 starts. 5 innings and 5 runs, 4 1/3 where he only gave up a run but had 6 hits in that game, and then of course only goes 4, giving up 3 earned runs and 2 walks in that last one. Because I think the only real candidate in this, that if Hunter Dobbins were to unseat somebody in the rotation, in my opinion, would be Kyle Leahy, and he would just move back into a bullpen role. But we've talked about that in the past, that it seems like they just want to keep this train moving with Kyle Leahy.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be a typical one start, and then he probably heads back down to the minors, does Dobbins. Now, they kept him around in the bullpen to provide some length.
Yeah.
I think part of that was if they sent him down, they weren't going to be able to call him back up without an injury, and you couldn't plan on Fernandez going down with the back issue, which happened on, I think, Friday, if I remember correctly. So I think this was okay, well, we know we're going to go to a 6-man rotation. We would prefer to have Dobbins be that guy that gets that spot start, so we'll just keep him on the roster for a little bit and kind of make it work. I think this is what's going to happen. They're going to have him start that game on Thursday against the Mets, and then I think you'll see him get sent down. But where I think where it gets kind of interesting is when you look at the Cardinals' 40-man roster, the only real option that they have to potentially call up is Roycroft, because with Fernandez on the IL, they called up Swanson to fill that spot on the roster. So the only other bullpen arms that are on the 40-man roster right now is, if you are to send down Dobbins and add a bullpen arm back in, is Roycroft, maybe Tink Hintz, but he just recently got put back on the AAA roster, and he's only appeared in, I think, 2 games. So I don't think they're doing that. That's their only options, unless they were to call up Motts and put him in a bullpen role, but I don't think they're going to do that. They want him stretched out. I find it interesting to see what they're going to do with him, because I don't think they're sticking with a 6-man after they go through it this turn. But I also, to your point on Kyle Leahy, I don't think they're abandoning Kyle Leahy as a starter, and I don't think they're abandoning Matthew Liberatore as a starter. I wonder if they will keep him in the bullpen in a long relief role and maybe piggyback him with Kyle Leahy for a little bit, because as we've seen, guys, when they first kind of convert to starters, at some point they start to hit a wall. Now, I don't know that Leahy is there yet, but I wonder if they would potentially explore that to kind of cut some of the innings on his workload here early in the season so they can save some bullets for later on.
And I view this one a bit differently, because I think what you saw against the Reds, it was a markedly different performance from Hunter Dobbins, okay? He was in attack mode essentially from the beginning, and provided that he doesn't get blown up, and there's no reason for me to think that against the New York Mets on Thursday afternoon that's going to happen there at Citi Field, I think you may actually see him get another turn through the rotation. You bypass Minnesota, you then get into the San Diego series where he would seem to play well. I think his stuff would play well there in the Petco Park environment. But what this does, it really accomplishes a couple of different things, because even if you're talking about a piggyback sort of arrangement, right, with a Kyle Leahy, having Dobbins going to him for another start conceivably provides a protection for a Matthew Liberatore as well, in the sense that, okay, this isn't somebody who now for weeks, guys, he's been able to get beyond 5+ innings. If you want the bullpen to keep operating as seamlessly as it has, and I know we're going to get into that, being able to preserve them, to kind of keep them from having to shoulder as many innings, to keep the Sorianos, to keep the guys ahead of Romero and O'Brien as healthy as possible, having Dobbins up here, regardless of the role, allows you to do that. And what you saw against Cincinnati did nothing but really strengthen the case, I think.
The hard part for me is finding who steps into that role. I mean, you just went through it, like Roycroft, Tink Hentz.
And I think I brought up Tink. You can probably write off Tink.
I just, those guys don't really make you better than what Hunter Dobbins is, but I understand the process of like, yeah, but you have to keep that arm ready, because you mentioned it in the office, and I agree with it. The other thing with Hunter Dobbins is, how are they viewing Dustin May as the season moves on? Does he become a trade candidate to where you're looking to fill that spot then, or are you worried about somebody else's continued development this season? So the hard part is the bullpen has quietly been really good for you over this last month. The bullpen really basically since the beginning of May, 2.9 ERA, which is 8th best in Major League Baseball, a 3.8 FIP, which is 15th, a 23% strikeout rate, 13th, and a 232 overall average, 18th. Your bullpen's been really good. Like, it's been a weapon for you lately in these tight games, giving you the ability to come back and win them, which I believe since the weekend's over, it's the 19 comeback wins that the Cardinals have had. That's because your bullpen's been awesome. And Dobbins has played a little bit of a part in that, because the last 2 appearances he has had has been in relief of somebody who has not looked good, and it's kept the game close. So that's the other thing with Hunter Dobbins that you have to wonder about, is how do they keep that bullpen moving forward? Because right now, it's weird to say, Riley O'Brien is the one that I probably get the tightest butt cheeks with. Graceffo, Stanek, Soriano, like these guys, Romero, these guys I feel very comfortable with when they come out of that bullpen for you.
Yeah, and I think with that conversation of Dobbins in the bullpen, and maybe Ollie doesn't find it hard. I would think it's hard to try and keep him on schedule as a quote-unquote starter in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, they've basically been trying to get him 80 pitches out of the pen and doing the 4 to 5 innings. Like, that's what they did with Libby. He went 4, and he went 5 in that. Can you constantly do that for him? I would think no, that it would be easier to just send him down to Memphis to stay on a routine and continue to start. But who knows? I mean, as Bradford said, he looked very good in this last appearance against the Reds. He was very good in the appearance, worked around one tightrope situation against the Cubs. But, yeah, I mean, the bullpen's become a weapon for the Cardinals. And you look at it, I mean, they had a bunch of guys that you really didn't trust in the first month. Now, you read off the names, O'Brien, Stanek, who's been awesome for them over the last month and a half. On top of Soriano, Graceffo, I don't know if I trust him in a clean inning, but he somehow comes in as the fireman role and is able to get out of a lot of tight jams, which is huge. 2 firemen
on this team.
Yeah. And
Look out now.
And then JoJo Romero's been awesome from the left side. I think he's top 30 or top 25 in strikeout percentage among left-handed relievers that qualify in Major League Baseball. That's about what you need, right? I mean, we typically say you need about 4 to 5 arms that you trust if you're going to be a playoff team, and I think they're there with that. And I still believe O'Brien, though it still has looked shaky at times, like it did on Saturday with the bases loaded, I still think he's going to ultimately be fine. They're going to be able to figure it out, and it's just going to be a weird 1 month and a half little blip on the radar. This bullpen's become a legitimate weapon for him, to where I used to say it when they were trailing the games, I'd go, oh, boy, here come those guys that are the trail relievers. They've only got kind of 2 guys that I don't trust right now. Brule, which I may never trust. I have huge trust issues. And then Swanson, who was just recently recalled.
Which looked good.
Yeah.
His 1 appearance, 2 strikeouts.
He can potentially flip the script, too, if they're able to figure out his sinker. So I like where the bullpen is at as we sit today.
No, and at the beginning of the campaign, we were wishing for maybe a pair of high-leverage relievers you could trust, right? And now the work of Soriano. Think about over the weekend, guys. That was the first earned run that he actually had permitted since back on May the 16th. How about Stanek? 14 of his past 15 appearances. 1 earned run has only been the case there in that that one game. They're allowing you to kind of conceal right now some of the somewhat shaky work here and there from an O'Brien. Working through it.
Yep, working through it, and the bullpen coming through big. But we get to see Hunter Dobbins in a starter role this week against the New York Mets. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But coming up next, is Jordan Kyrou's future with the Blues this offseason tied to a pending free agent? We'll discuss that and Robert Thomas stuff. Sounds like it's officially dead. Next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbirds nab a breather before hitting Big Apple. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals are idle today after sweeping their weekend set with visiting Cincinnati tomorrow, bringing 2026's lone trip to Citi Field. Redbirds Mets series opener style unfolding at 6:10 p.m. Tonight, our 6 o'clock hour includes NBA Finals pregame coverage. Knicks Spurs will storm Madison Square Garden. New York owns that 2-zip series edge so far. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So I feel like it's a daily occurrence in St. Louis Sports Talk Radio, maybe in NHL National Radio, because I see Kiprios talk about it an awful lot, but Jordan Kyrou on the trade market. And along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. But I think we've all come to the same sentiment that, yeah, the Blues probably would like to move Jordan Kyrou, but the real question is there an appetite to trade and meet the asking price for Jordan Kyrou? It's a top prospect, it's a first-round pick, and it's an NHL caliber player. At least that's what Bruce Garriott of the Ottawa Senators beat writer posted. But Greg Wyshynski had a trade piece out there on ESPN.com that had Kyrou as, what was it, team on the second or third?
Yeah, most likely to be traded.
Most likely to be traded. And then the report happened over the weekend of conversations really aren't going well between the Buffalo Sabres and Alex Tuch. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, T-Bone, to where Buffalo brought up the idea of trading for Jordan Kyrou if they don't pay the money to re-sign Alex Tuch. And when you look at the free agent market, it really does signify that it does feel as if Alex Tuch is tied to Jordan Kyrou. I wonder that if Alex Tuch hits free agency, one, it puts the Buffalo Sabres into the conversation of, well, maybe they trade for him because they've talked about him in the past, at least through reports, and they need to replace some goal scoring. But two, it puts a lot of other teams that are going after Alex Tuch to, if they fall flat and say, nah, we just can't meet that asking price for the free agency, they go to the market to trade for Jordan Kyrou. So as much as we view it right now as like who's going to move for him, I think that becomes a lot clearer once teams miss out on Jordan Kyrou or miss out on Alex Tuch via free agency. And this goes to the comment that Doug Armstrong gave to JR on his piece last week. Like, sometimes you think you can get deals done, but this carries over into the first couple of weeks of free agency because teams need to figure out who they realistically can or can't get before they head to the trade market.
So I kind of agree with that. I do think there will be some teams that will say, we don't have interest in Tuch. We'd rather have Kyrou, who's going to be making less on a more reasonable deal. But I'm sure they might have that conversation to check in on Tuch. My question would be to you is it a good thing if some of these teams have to check in on Tuch first? And the reason I ask, or is it a bad thing, the teams have to check in on Tuch first? Because the first deadline of the offseason is going to be the draft. And if there are teams that say, you know what, we want to check in on the Alex Tuch market first, they may be putting the Blues on pause on Jordan Kyrou, which means, all right, we won't be trading any picks in this package for this year's draft. Then you have to wait to see what happens with the Tuch market. So you're talking about after July 1st. You're maybe talking like July 5th and beyond, to where suddenly then conversations start to pop up of, okay, we missed out on Tuch. Now we want to have a conversation with the Blues. And if we're putting a pick in this trade, it's not a pick for the 2026 draft. It's a pick for the 2027 draft.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, if you want more arsenal for this draft, then that would be problematic. I don't know if the player they want for Kyrou is a pick, though. Like, I think what they want in return for Kyrou is either an NHL player or they want a top prospect. The pick is just secondary with it. Like, I think they'd like a first-round pick, but I don't think it has to be 2026. If they've got a 2027 first-round pick, my guess is they're not going to want to use that by 2027 draft. It will be a part of something if they're trying to better their team. I think it's good if Kyrou's at the, trying to think of the best way to phrase it. I think it's good if Kyrou is at the top of mind, and it's better if they look at it as, well, we want to see what we can get for Tuch. I don't think this has to be, well, we have to wait for July 1st to find out. Teams know what it's going to cost to get Alex Tuch.
Fair. Teams
are talking about, hey, is Alex Tuch even going to be interested in this? So a lot of those teams that need the scoring upgrade, they're not worried about waiting until July 1st to find out with Tuch. They'll probably know at the draft is like, look, is Tuch re-signing in Buffalo? What's his market? Are we even in that conversation piece? Because if you're a no on most of those, then that's where you say, all right, let's not worry about this. Let's not wait. Because you got to think, too, other teams don't want to wait for Alex Tuch. Other teams don't want to get into the roulette wheel of, well, maybe we'll fall to Alex Tuch. Man, they want their decisions quicker. And if they can get a certainty for the next 5 years at $8 million versus an uncertainty of, are we going to be able to get Tuch and is it going to be in our window? Still think that benefits the Blues. But the fascinating part with that one is, does a team like Buffalo get aggressive right away? Like, that's the team that I would be looking at if I'm the Blues is, okay, well, if you're not getting them back, how fast do you want to make this deal? Because they've got a first-round pick in this year's draft. They've got a lot of top-tier talent in their minor league system, and they've got NHL talent that could help right away.
Yeah, so I agree. I presented that question just because I was curious what your thoughts on it would be, because I think it doesn't really impact the Kyrou market with Tuch hitting free agency. I think it might distract a couple of teams for a little bit, but I think whoever loses out, those teams are going to circle back. And I think, if anything, it creates a new suitor for him, and that would be Buffalo, like you said. Now, would he go to Buffalo? I'm kind of skeptical of that because he can control his own fate with the no-trade clause. Yeah. But we can at least bring it up, and maybe he does surprise us and say, hey, look, that team's going to be pretty good for the next couple of years. I'll go over there, and I could go be on the line with, like, Tage Thompson and really put up some points. It's
not like Seattle where JR said, like, that trade's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Seattle's not competitive.
But
Buffalo is just one of the best teams in the league.
To your point, even if this does drag on to where teams say, hey, look, we're not comfortable making this trade because we do want to check in on Alex Tuch. Okay, so if that means it's delayed a little bit and it is a post-July 1st trade or maybe slightly after the NHL draft, I don't mind. One, I think you're right. I think they're going to be centered in on looking for high-level prospects or young NHL controllable talent. But if it is we need a first-round pick to sweeten this, I don't care that it's a first-round pick for next year's draft. Yeah. Guess what? I just added it to my ammunition for next offseason or for the trade deadline if we end up being a team that is surprisingly good. All right, well, great. We go into the trade deadline with 2 first-round picks, or we go into next offseason with 2 first-round picks. They don't need more picks for this year's draft. They've got plenty of them with 3. Yeah. So I'm with you. I don't think the Tuch news really affects the Jordan Kyrou market because I think there are teams that are already going, why are we going to go out there and give this guy $12, $13 million when we can get like 90% of that player with a Jordan Kyrou for less on just a couple years of control on his deal.
Who's 3 years older than Kyrou, too. Remember that. And you're signing this guy probably to a 7-year deal because he's going to get the max on the market. So, and remember that first-round pick from Buffalo in this year's draft, that's a 24th, 25th overall pick. Like, it's not like we're talking about another top 15 one. But the other side of this is you are seeing direction of how this offseason is going to go. Because if you missed it, Andy Strickland tweeted this out over the weekend. The Thomas trade rumors can be put to rest. The Blues are not looking to move their number 1 center. Expect Thomas to be on the roster when training camp begins in September. If that's true, which, I mean, Strickland's got ties, so I can't imagine he's wrong with this one, then the Blues have made it known that this guy is a part of the team moving forward. He's not in the conversation, which means those packages, to me, I remember at the end of the season to where Doug talked about it to like, we still got to decide what the short and the medium term looks like. They've decided. It's including Robert Thomas, which to me tells me like, hey, they think they can be competitive in a couple of years.
I would also add, I think it tells me they lied at their end of postseason media availability when they said, well, we don't read too much into the second half, and, we're not sure if we're going to go long with Dylan Holloway. All right, well, Holloway signed a long-term extension, and you're pulling Thomas off the board, so I'm just going to read the tea leaves that say they kind of believed what they saw from that first line in the second half of the season.
I think it also tells me that they're not getting anywhere near the price that they would want for Robert Thomas. And if nobody's going to pay that price, well, then we're going to keep this guy, which made the sense all along.
That's where I say they determined that at the end of the year.
Probably.
Because I think when Army put him on the market at the trade deadline, I actually think he was willing to listen. I think he didn't get the offers he wanted, but I don't think that was a give me the Godfather offer and I'll make it happen, but there's only like the 1 in a million offers that I will take. I think he was actively shopping Robert Thomas because there was literally nothing to point at and say, at least this is going well for the Blues right now. There was none of that.
No.
And then the second half of the year happened and he tried to downplay it. I think he's using that as motivational speak, if you will. But that first line became something you could point to and say, wow, imagine if these 3 guys can stay healthy and play at this level. this is a first line that we can really build around, and that's where I think everything changed. So I think it makes sense. I would have still been listening on him, but it would have been taking a Godfather offer for me to make that move. But I can see how they got to this conclusion. I think they were lying through their teeth at their press conference. They were buying into what the first line did in the second half of the season. The rest of the team, I think there's some fair skepticism on. But what that first line did, yeah, you're going to buy into that, and you're going to try and build around it.
And what this also does is it narrows down your options in the offseason. And this makes it more likely, which I don't think people are going to like to hear, that you see the same team next year. Because really this comes down to Parayko and Kyrou. And in my opinion, and I know you don't agree with this, I think keeping Thomas tells me that it's very likely you're going to keep Colton Parayko. Because if you think that you can still remain competitive, you need to keep that veteran presence on the defensive side for the younger guys that you're going to have on this roster, which if you're looking to upgrade, it comes down to Kyrou. It comes down to Kyrou and your draft picks to see if you can make your team better. Now, if you think you can get the second overall pick and Parayko's a part of that, that's something that I believe the Blues would probably entertain. I don't know if San Jose's interested in that. So the options of what could be a crazy direction of where is this team going, it's starting to narrow down to, yeah, they're sticking with the plan that they thought all along was Thomas is a part of this. We've got the right pieces. It's just development. And can we move a piece off of our roster to make it better for now and for the longer term? And that's the part that's just going to remain to be seen for the rest of this offseason.
Yeah, I don't know that for me, the Thomas one doesn't play into Parayko, because I think when it comes to that decision, it is about the age and where the core is going. Now, it is a very fair argument, I do admit, on the do we really want to go extremely young defensively if we trade Parayko, which they would be? No, ideally you wouldn't want to. Mike told us that, 2 Fridays ago when it was you and I that talked with him?
Yeah.
But it could be one of those where you trade him and then you go out and you still want veteran experience. You go sign a veteran defenseman to a 1 or 2 year deal to kind of help with that.
For sure.
That takes away some of that pressure from the young guys. And you do that while you also were able to get a haul for Colton Parayko. But the reason I say that is because it's a lot easier to fit Thomas into what they've been selling as their age range for this retool, because they've been saying, 26 and younger?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to be 27. We can't, round up a year for Robert Thomas.
Absolutely not.
But Parayko, it's a little bit harder because for Colton Parayko, he's going into his age 33 season. I'm doing a lot of rounding to get up to 33 to fit into the core.
6 years, man.
So I think that's one to where they're still going to listen on it. Do I think he's getting traded? My bet today would be no. But I don't think it is as cut and dry as, hey, we're not moving Robert Thomas and we're not moving Colton Parayko. I think it is Parayko doesn't really fit into our timeline as we're about to enter into another kind of mini retool here. Let's at least listen and see if there's an offer that's on the table that blows us away, just like they did at the trade deadline when they were able to get that deal in place with Buffalo before he nixed it.
Yeah, I think this is just a matter of if somebody meets the ask, can we still make our team better for the timeline that we're looking for? And that's the part that you're going to the free agent market. You got to get a defenseman back in return. So I think it's an option. I just think it's a very slim option because you have to make yourself better if you're moving Colton Parayko. With Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, Jordan Walker is completely changing the complexion of this Cardinals build. We'll discuss that. But coming up next, we dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
The Stanley Cup Finals are on ESPN tomorrow night. Golden Knights and Hurricanes. Pregame at 6:30. Puck drop at 7. The NHL playoffs are on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. And when it comes to a company, there's a couple of things you want. One, you want great customer service. You want people that care when you call, and you aren't just a number that's like, sure, we'll get you on the schedule. No, these individuals actually care about their customers, making sure that they get the help that they truly need. The other thing that they really care about is the service that you're getting when they come out. You've got technicians that have been doing this for 30 years. It's not just people coming out that are new into the business that can't really answer your questions. No, they're coming out, they're figuring out the problems, they're giving you solutions, and they're helping you understand how to avoid those problems in the future. It's a company that I've been using for my home since 2016. It's a company my family has been using for as long as I can remember. That's because of all of those criteria that I just mentioned. They've got hundreds of vans out on the road with the orange penguins on the side, so you see them out on the road. You're going to get back back within 24 hours if you give them a call to schedule your appointments. And they've got maintenance options. They've got financing options for new units. Call them today, schedule online, have them take care of your home. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
Let's dive dive right in and hand it over to T-Bone for today's junk drawer.
Yeah, you ever been so tired and you're kind of running behind early in the morning that you just do something really stupid?
Who hasn't?
Yeah. And got into a car accident because of that.
Compared to it, am I right?
Yeah.
I didn't do that at least, but
Those 4 a.m. calls on Sundays weren't fun.
so Saturday I had to get up super early for my standards, but I'd also call it early for everybody.
So 10 a.m.?
No, 6 a.m. because I had to go to a funeral this weekend, and my family was in town for it. So, my parents stayed at a hotel down the road for me. My sister was with me, and, we had to leave my house by whatever it was, 7:30 or something. So I get up and, I'm drinking the coffee, reading the paper, but I'm super groggy, right? Like, I'm still kind of out of it.
You're trying. You're trying hard.
Next thing I know, it's like, okay, the time is getting upon me pretty quickly here, okay? So
Yeah, you're just
I better
delaying.
start getting ready. So as I'm getting ready for this funeral, I get a text and my mom says, okay, we're here. So I just quit. Okay, I got to hurry up. I'm already behind. So I get dressed. We go to the funeral. We go to lunch afterwards. And I did feel kind of hot, okay? But I just thought, it's 80 degrees. It's super
It's
humid
St. Louis
outside.
in
It's
June.
St. Louis. This kind of all makes sense that I'm hot because I'm wearing layers. Well, only did I later find out I had more layers on than I was expecting. Because, I had a newer pair of pants on. And I went to the bathroom and I noticed there's just this string that's in my groin. And I'm like, what the heck
That's
is this?
supposed to be there, buddy.
Why would a string be in a pair of pants in the groin? That's kind of weird.
Clip that off.
Don't think anything of it, And so then afterwards, later in the afternoon, we go to my uncle's house. And we decide, let's play some basketball. So,
As one would do.
we're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So, okay, I'm going to change into some shorts so we can play some basketball. And so I go into this bathroom and I start to change, take off the khaki pants I had on, and I look down and I go, wait a minute. That's my pajama bottoms that are still on that I decided that I didn't take off. So the whole time for the entire
Wearing the
day,
pajama pants.
I had pajama pants on that I had put khakis over the top of.
He had a lot
and
happening,
didn't
okay?
realize
He had a
it
lot happening.
at all until that moment.
So here's my one question.
Yes.
Why didn't you go into the bathroom and take those pants off and put your suit pants back on?
At what point?
I don't know. There's a bathroom, right?
Well, I
could've
eventually took those off, yes.
You could have gone into the bathroom and been like, I got to get these pants off. I'm sweating my arse off right now.
Where do you put them? Maybe there wasn't a convenient spot.
Who cares?
Yeah. I just wondered because, then we, most of the day we
You
were
would
in
have had to
air
go
conditioning.
commando?
Yeah, no, I at least had that on.
So you had three
Yeah,
layers
yeah.
on. That's insane.
But
that would have come off so fast.
And I had no, I was like, man, why is there this string here? This makes no sense. Who has pants that have a string where your zipper is? But I was like, yeah, whatever. It must just be this pair of pants I bought, right? Only did I realize later on what exactly was going on.
See, so I'm the type of person that
And it
can't wear
explained,
layers.
by the way, why I was in the car and I was like, man, I'm kind of hot.
Yeah.
So, not extremely hot, just enough to notice that I was warmer than everybody else.
I can't do layers. So when I wear undershirts, when you do long sleeve undershirts or something, it irks me. I have to pull the sleeve through all the way.
Okay.
Because if it gets bunched up, my whole day's over. I used to wear sweatpants under gym gym shorts under sweatpants at school in the wintertime because the double layer was cold and I wanted to wear sweatpants. I don't think I could have handled that. The idea of wearing pants under pants, I would have had to go home and start my whole day over again.
Tanner, I've done it before, buddy. I'm not afraid to admit that.
It just bunches. You got to take them off.
It has
plain and
happened.
simple. You got to take them off, and you just got to go with it, man. You can't do two pants under.
What's so wild about it is we're talking about from 7 a.m. So I think I realized around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 4 or 5.
I think every day of my life I feel that where I'm exhausted and you just forget how to make your day work.
And again, it never felt uncomfortable.
On one hand, it's kind of impressive.
Kind of warm.
Yeah, that's the part for me. It's damn, Tanner, I couldn't have worn that all day. There's no way.
No, and you should have seen my shock when I was like, wait a minute, what's this down here?
I'm wearing another pair of pants.
No wonder why I'm so hot.
Put string in these pants. Tanner Henderickson,
I feel like an idiot.
likes to wear double pants. Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, Jordan Walker has once again broken out of that slump people were worried about and has completely changed the complexion of this Cardinals build. What does that mean moving forward? We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's Kerry Davis, and you can join me and 101 ESPN this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Paymore in Baldwin. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore is a great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. And this Friday, you can get 10% off all in-store purchases, plus enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood. You can check out the Baldwin location located at 15367 Manchester Road this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with me, CD, and 101 ESPN. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Well, with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's 108, your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Real quick, before we get into the Jordan Walker conversation, it is official. Lynn Worthy tweeting out 3 minutes ago, SLU and Mizzou make it official, a 3-game men's basketball series that will begin this season at Enterprise Center in St. Louis. This year's game will be on Friday, November 6th. Dates for 27-28 and 28-29 at Enterprise Center will be announced at a later date. We've talked a lot about this before when it was originally kind of rumored to be going on. This is great for both sides. Mizzou's non-con schedule just continues to build, which is great for them. I know BK and I talked about this on Friday with Nebraska being a team that Mizzou gets to take on, but for SLU and Mizzou, man, you get both kind of local schools that people support in St. Louis. I'd expect this to be a huge attendance, and it's going to be a fun series that they build up and hopefully can sustain over time.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see it. I know you, as you mentioned, you guys talked about this on Friday. I heard a little bit of it while driving around, but look, it's good for Dennis Gates to be adding these big non-conference games to the schedule because that was the one area that this team was really lacking, and he's got the roster that should be able to go on a tournament run. Get them some hard experience before entering in conference play so they're not shell-shocked when they get there. So I love it for Missouri that Dennis Gates is adding a tough non-con schedule, and I love it for SLU that they're able to get this kind of game in because it's been hard for them to find these kind of games. This is a good find for both sides, and like you said, local, it'll be a huge draw.
Yeah, before Christmas alone, you're talking about SLU, you're talking about Pitt, which has been confirmed as well, Nebraska, and then Illinois. Yeah, baby, let's go.
Yep, so some great news on that.
Illinois, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Illinois will have it.
At least I got SLU gear already. I don't have to buy new SLU gear for that game.
Roll it up.
They'll be ready to go on that one. So another exciting piece of St. Louis sports has been Jordan Walker. Another great weekend for him. 16th home run. He's got 16 of them in 61 games. To put it into perspective, he hit 16 home runs back in 2023 in 117 games. And T-Bone put this one together. The last 2 seasons, he hit 11 home runs in 162 games. Right now, Jordan Walker is on pace for 41 home runs, 121 RBIs, 26 steals. No Cardinal player has ever put together a 40 home run, 20 stolen base season, which is incredible to say for how many historic figures have played for the St. Louis Cardinals. But that's what Jordan Walker is doing, and it has completely changed the mindset, in my opinion, of what the Cardinals are doing in this rebuild. Now, it's not like all of a sudden I think they're World Series contenders because their pitching pipeline has to catch up. That's the part that really will make this thing go. When you get Liam Doyle and Tanner Franklin and Quinn Matthews and Senja and maybe Cooper Jerpy and all of these pieces that you've invested in, that's when you're ready to click go on this and make this thing run. But if you've got Jordan Walker performing like that middle of the order bat, and the real thing will just be sustainability. Can you do this next year? Can you do it the year after? If you get 10 years of it, which is a hard thing to ask, but that's what the Cardinals have been lacking. A middle of the order bat that you can picture is carrying this team moving forward. And then the pieces around it with a Weatherholt, with a Burleson, with potentially a Rodriguez and a Joshua Baez. This is where you look at it and say, okay, I see what the idea is and the mindset for Chaim Bloom was. Fix the pipeline for pitching, find the bats, and make this thing potentially in 3 years, which is a realistic timeline now for the Cardinals to kind of get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100% because before this season, before we saw Walker finally take that next step, I didn't know where they were going to have this middle of the order coming from, right? Because Burley's a good bat to have in the middle of the order. I think ideally you would like to have Burley kind of in the 5 spot because he just doesn't have a huge amount of thump in his bat. Or Herrera, 2, 5, somewhere in that spot for those 2 guys. But I think Walker's the one that really kind of transcends what this timeline has looked like because you're right. I mean, they now have not just a 30 home run, 100 RBI guy, which I'd always make reference to as who's that guy in the middle of this lineup. You're talking about a guy that's going to be in the MVP conversation. Yeah. Will he win it? No, there's a guy called Shohei Ohtani in the National League. But he's going to be at least in the conversation. He's top 10 in RBIs right now in the National League. You mentioned the 40-20 pace he's on right now. I mean, those are MVP numbers. And I agree, pitching is what's going to be the thing that will get them back into a World Series timeline. Probably another bat as well. I think that they will need to get there to be a World Series contender. But this Jordan Walker, this version of Jordan Walker, is one of the single driving forces as to why they are a playoff contender. And that is a huge win for the St. Louis Cardinals because they are putting themselves in the conversation to be a playoff team, which I don't think any of us expected. I think they might be better than what many people thought entering this first year of the rebuild. I didn't even see this happening for him because I didn't think they had this in their system.
He has struck out 11 times in the month of June, and yet he is batting .407, and you think that there's even more from which to glean there. Guys, to that point, when you think about the adjustments specifically now, of which Walker is clearly capable of making, from at-bat to at-bat, I'm not just talking about series to series or game to game. Case in point yesterday, he already was in the midst of that mammoth series against Cincinnati. You remember the way he started it with the home run, with the 3 hits, with the 2 more on Saturday. And then yesterday, just easing one into left field, dropping that bat head, hitting the changeup, and then sending that rope to left center field as well for the double later in the game. You feel so comfortable with what you're seeing from him, and not only at the dish. Tanner, to your point, And that was some excellent research along those lines. What you're seeing now on the base pass, finding different impactful ways to influence the game. I go back to, it was the Miami series, if I'm not mistaken, when he was facing one of the tough early season left-handers, talking about how, okay, maybe it's not a game in which I'm able to reach 2-3 times courtesy of a hit, but how can I be impactful? How can I add more of those dimensions to my game? And we've talked about how you've had that shortage of guys. Really, on the Cardinals, actually, it's been a non-starter as far as 40-20 individuals in the club's history. Only 24 dudes in the history of Major League Baseball have gone 40-20. Juan Soto actually entered that club last year. So to even be in this conversation right now, thinking about MVP consideration, thinking about how an entire complexion can be changed in just the span of a couple of months, it's staggering.
Think of this. He became the 5-tool player they expected.
Yeah.
This year he's done it, right?
Base running, defense, slug.
Hitting for average as well. Like, he's done everything that you would want to see from him. I mean, he hits for average. He gets on base at a good clip. He slugs. He's driving in runs. Defensively, like you made reference to, he's playing like a Gold Glove caliber right fielder.
Yeah.
And he's got a cannon of an arm to help him. Oh, and by the way, he can steal bases when he gets on base. Like, it's everything you dream of for a ball player, and especially for a guy his size, right? I mean, that's the part that's so shocking of how big he is, how he's been able to just kind of take that next step. He is finally living up to what the expectations were for him, and to see him get there when I wrote him off at the beginning of the year just because there was nobody you could find in circle as this is a guy that came up, had success in year one, fell flat on his face for 2 years where he was a -4 player to then suddenly become an MVP candidate. It just hardly ever happens in the big leagues.
I think that's the reason why that there should be belief in this being a real thing. And it's the fact of, one, he's failed and he's figured it out. But two, you look at the small sample size of him struggling this season. He's corrected it. So, yes, like sustainability in terms of like, you just don't want to disappear the next season and not be what you were, because that's kind of how you get stuck back to where you were. And, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. But this season, you've had two separate windows to where for about 3 to 5 games, he has struck out. He's looked like his older self to where he's swinging at certain pitches. And what has he done the next series or the next day? He's come back and he's figured it out, and he's back to hitting for contact, hitting for power, and still playing great defense for you overall. That's how, if you're Chaim Bloom, you look at it and say, okay, there's the answer. And, the offensive side, the complementary pieces are there. Like, sure, you're looking for a third base fixture, but, you got another bat that's got pop in Joshua Baez. You've got another bat that seems to be everything between contact and pop with Reynel Rodriguez. You've got the on-base guys with J.J. Weatherholt. You've got the defensive first players that have a good bat with Mason Wynn. Like, the pieces are there. And that gets me to another player on this team. Is there a way Lars Nootbaar changes the mindset of individuals that may look at it and say, he's good, but you need to trade him? Because we already spoke about Lars Nootbaar. He returned this weekend and had an impact in all 3 games, and a really good impact in all 3 games. He's not old by any means. Sure, he's got injury issues. I don't think he's going to cost you a lot. Maybe he does. But Nootbaar playing the prime position of where Joshua Baez plays does cause a little bit of hiccup in this. Is there a way by the end of this season or even at this year's trade deadline, Lars Nootbaar shifts your mindset of, yeah, he's going to be a trade candidate for you, to, no, he's a part of this team?
Not for me. I originally kind of played that down a little bit towards the beginning of the year when BK and I had this conversation on the Red Bird Report. I've already settled on odds are he's gone. And the reason that I say that is because Baez has clearly developed and looks like he's going to be a guy that can help this team at the major league level. And he's going to be a guy they're going to want to play at some point. Whether that is at the deadline or that is in the offseason, either way, I expect that this is probably the last time we see Lars Nootbaar in a Cardinals uniform this season. He is a needed boost to this lineup and will help them this year. But my expectation is if they're in it and they're at the deadline, A, they're not selling him, but B, I think they're having a conversation in the offseason of trading him so they can clear that spot for Baez, who clearly doesn't have much more to prove at AAA. And if they're out of it at the deadline, then they will have the conversations of trading Nootbaar if he continues to play well like he's done in the 3 games that we've seen so far, because you'll be able to get a haul for him. Because he will be a guy that, if he gets back to who he was early on in his career, prior to the heel issues creeping up last year, he's going to get a big contract. He's going to be looking at the Nimmo deal. He's going to be looking at Brandon Nimmo's 8 years, $162 million.
Yeah.
It's going to be something in that range because he's got the same profile as Nimmo. Guy that gets on base, has pretty good pop, and can play really good defense in the corner. So I don't see a scenario where that stays with the St. Louis Cardinals. Not so much financially, just because you have an internal replacement in Joshua Baez ready to take that spot.
Yeah, you're never going to get a potential return along the lines of what you could have garnered from Seattle, say, X number of years ago. That's wishful thinking. However, can he be somebody who clearly strengthens your stretch run, your ability to compete conceivably down the stretch? I can see that, but it goes back to what we discussed at the beginning of the show, guys, and that is the fact that Lars Nootbaar isn't a savior for this team. He's never been projected as such. He doesn't have to be. He can be a truly impactful complementary piece. But complementary pieces, the complexion, the way that you view them, especially going into the offseason, especially considering what you have at his position on the farm, the expectations for a Joshua Baez, that opinion simply doesn't change. It doesn't matter if he has the best extended run, in my mind, of his major league career, Tanner, because the focus is on the future and moving forward.
Yeah, and this is why somebody brought up, said, well, then why not move him to center field? He can't play center field. If you want him to be healthy all season, I just don't think he's a center field option, and I'm not going to play Josh Baez there if he doesn't bode well because this team values defense. Baez's position is going to be one of the corner outfield spots. You've already got that centerpiece in terms of Jordan Walker. So I'm with you. As much as I think Lars Nootbaar is an energy piece and a piece that you want around, I think it kind of falls into the same conversation as Brendan Donovan. Not so much the age bracket, but you look at it and you say, does he fit into the timeline, or is he a piece that can get us something that betters us in the future? Now, I don't think this is a trade deadline conversation anymore, especially if the team continues to thrive. But I do think it pops up as an offseason conversation because as good as Lars Nootbaar is, I think your positions are set in terms of what the future looks like with Baez and Jordan Walker. And he might be a piece that helps you upgrade in one of the other positions, like third base, like center field, or maybe get you another pitcher. Because, again, Walker can be as incredible as we want him to be. But the window doesn't open until your pitching pipeline develops. And that's going to be the next step that Chaim Bloom and Ali Marmol are going to continue to wait for. But with Jordan Walker doing this, it does give you the optimism that it gets here faster. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll get into some of the trade rumors that have already started to pop up, one on the negative side and one on the positive side. But next, you send us the scenario to our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll tell you if we are in or out next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
No. USA is up 2-0. That
St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Our YouTube channel over at 101 ESPN STL, along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. As we get into in or out, you send us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out. I'll kick this one off, fellas. In or out. The team that wins Game 4 of the Stanley Cup final tomorrow night will win the Stanley Cup.
Oh.
So either Vegas wins and they go up 3-1. Carolina wins and they even up the series and it goes back to Carolina for Game 5.
I would say in. I think the odds would play in favor of that. Maybe not so much if Carolina wins it, but I believe Vegas is winning this in 6, and I think they win tomorrow night, especially now that Carolina's got a goaltending question. And I'll stick with my original prediction, Vegas in 6, and I'll say they win tomorrow. So, yeah, I'll say in.
I'm in as well. I echo those sentiments. I think especially on the heels of what you saw the other night with Vegas being able to pull that one out in double overtime. The first time this postseason Carolina has actually gone to an extra session or multiple ones only to lose that game. The confidence continuing to grow. I, too, like Vegas in 6, just like you, buddy.
Yeah, my Carolina in 6 doesn't pan out, so I push it to Carolina in 7, but I'm in. I think Carolina wins, and I think they win the series overall. T-Bone?
Guys, I saw today that Jim Bowden made his first All-Star Game roster projections, and he had just one Cardinal in it, and that would be Jordan Walker. So, in or out, Jordan Walker will be the only representative for the St. Louis Cardinals at the All-Star Game this year.
I'm going to say in. I don't think a pitcher gets in unless, somebody votes them or there's injuries. I think the only other option that could get it is J.J. Weatherholt because the second base, but you're just going up against some names, which I think is important when it comes to fans voting in. So I'll say in. It's Jordan Walker.
I'm going out because even though this man, and we've talked about him earlier in the program today, has experienced more issues, more struggles, relatively speaking, of late, the All-Star Game likes a good narrative. And the All-Star Game will have no shortage of relievers pulling out of the festivities. If he isn't an initial selection, Riley O'Brien will be. He's top 5 in saves. The ERA has gone up, but who doesn't want to see him firing those away at Philadelphia? Let's do it.
I would say I'm out. I don't know that O'Brien will be one, though. You're right. The saves will help him.
I think Romero might be more likely, which I think so hard to go.
I don't think Romero's in, and I hate to say it. If you're going to be a setup reliever, we talked about this last week, you have to have like a .5 ERA.
You have to be Pat Neshek.
Yeah. So
brought up.
It's
wild how that goes.
The reason I say out is I think originally I could see where it's only one Cardinal is named as a reserve. Mm-hmm. But as Bradford said, as guys start to pull out, injuries start to occur, I think another Cardinal will get in. I think they're going to end up with 2 or 3 representatives. My bet today would be Walker originally gets in, and then you see one of Weatherholt, Burley, Herrera fill in as a replacement, and then McGreevy gets in as a pitcher as a replacement late in the process.
All right. Bradford?
All right, guys. 3 straight postseason appearances and 3 straight duds in those playoffs from the Battlehawks. That was the case again yesterday, 29-20, losing that contest. And in or out, we just have to throw it out there. That was the final game that we see from the Battlehawks in the UFL altogether.
Wow.
Boy, what a positive Monday it's been.
Damn, Bradford coming in hot
with the heat on a Monday.
I'll say out. I'll say we see another. It feels like the fat lady is starting to sing, but I don't think it's next season. So I'll say I'm out.
It's more of a UFL-centric question.
I know
Let's not kid ourselves.
I know what you're talking about.
It's just still negative, okay, Bradford?
Yeah.
Don't try to add a cherry on this.
We don't need your negativity on a Monday, Bradford.
Realistic, too. Realistic.
I don't like reality.
See? Yeah, let me live in my little bubble. I still say out.
I'm with you. I'm out. I do think the UFL is eventually probably going to fold, but I don't know that it's next season. I think there's another year or 2 left in it, so I would say out for now.
Out temporarily definitely feels like borrowed time, though. Look, guys, when you have an expansion team, with all due respect, in Chris Redmond's Louisville Kings going up against a 5-win team in D.C. in your UFL Bowl final, I don't exactly think that enhances the anticipation for the year ahead.
From the 314 in or out, Dylan Larkin will get traded to the Minnesota. I think they're going to have the best package available, and he wants to go there. Detroit's not trading him in conference. They're getting a young center back, which I think Charlie Stramel will be a part of it. They'll get a goaltender that can help them now, which has been their biggest problem, is finding a goaltender. It's just they're going to have to swallow the idea of we're going to have to take a step backwards a little bit because you move Larkin, you don't bring back Kane. If I'm them, I actively try and trade Alex DeBrincat. I do what the Blues did. I retool on the fly, and people aren't going to like it. But if I'm Steve Yzerman, the Yzer plan didn't work. Let's try Yzer plan 2.0. So I think it's Minnesota. It makes the most sense for Detroit.
Yeah, I think I'm in. I do have some questions if Minnesota's got the pieces to make it work out. But I would say they're the favorite because they seem to be super aggressive. They're going to need to upgrade the center position. So I think they're going to somehow find a way to make this work. Maybe that includes getting a third team involved to try and make this deal happen. But I like where your thought is. I think it is probably Minnesota's the favorite. I'd say in.
I'm in as well, begrudgingly, though. You can't have this in back-to-back off seasons. The mega Kaprizov deal, and let's just acquire Larkin as well this time around. Yeah. It doesn't seem fair, man.
It's not fun.
It's
but
not fair.
It is what it is, which is why the Central Division is going to just be it's a cage match to get out of. Like, you hope you're alive at the end of the regular season, which is why it makes sense that if the Blues look at it and say, maybe we're 2 or 3 years rather than being in it this next year. From the never-ending wipe, in or out, Walker finishes in the top 5 race, MVP race, and gets a long-term deal in the offseason.
Boy, that's tough. Okay, so top 5 MVP, I think I'm in on.
I think that happens. I don't think they give him an extension.
I think they might.
Do you?
I wouldn't do it. To be clear, I wouldn't. You know my stance on contract extensions. They're very hard to predict.
To find long-term deal, I'm serious. Are we talking in the range of 5 to 7 or more?
8+ years potentially.
I mean, you're locking him up for his...
And the reason that I say they might do it is they may see this and go, hey, look, he's finally figured out what it's like to be a big leaguer. We always believed in this talent, and if we don't get ahead of this now, this guy is going to really get paid through the arbitration process.
And frankly, if you want people to believe in your plan, you got to sign the face of the plan to a long-term deal.
And the thing that when we had the conversations about Weatherholt, it did make sense because you already have him through his age 20 seasons. Yeah. Walker becomes a free agent by the age of 28, 29, somewhere in that range. So you're going to want to still have some of those 20 years with him and into those early 30 years. So I could see where the Cardinals would look at that and say, we should extend that guy. I wouldn't do it because I'm still a little haunted by the past. I would want to see him do it for another year before I'd be willing to swim in those waters. Yeah. But Heim is a forward-thinking Bobo, so I could see where he would do it. So honestly, I might lean in on that.
Honestly, you pounce. So, yeah, I think I might be in on this one as well.
I'm in on it, too, and that's the thing. I understand the trepidation that could be there, but what we're seeing this season as far as the adjustments, even from series to series, I simply don't see him bottoming out potentially in the same way. And sooner rather than later, guys, for an elite source of power in the game today, you're going to have to pay. This isn't some sort of with all due respect, Jackson Chourio 8-year, $82 million kind of deal. You better come to the table with a ton.
From JDCWE, no, a lot of letters there. In or out, package Nootbaar and Gorman and get a bona fide number 1 starter. Out. I don't think that's enough.
Agreed.
Nootbaar's basically a starting point. Gorman's just a throw-in.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're talking multiple.
I mean, you want a number 1 starter, you're talking... teams may not even want Nootbaar, depending on who you're talking to. But you want a number 1 starter, you're talking about parting with Rodriguez. You're talking about parting with Baez. You're talking about parting with Doyle. Like, those are the names that are going to be in that conversation. Not Gorman. Gorman is your trash that you're trying to take out. Yeah. So, no, I'm out. That would not be enough.
I'm clearly out. You fantasized about this a few years ago. Again, with the Mariners, you may have had a window that closed.
In or out, Walker in the home run derby. Out. Don't break him. Don't break him.
You'd worry about that?
Yes.
Even now?
Absolutely.
I mean, we see a bunch of guys.
When it doesn't hurt the player.
Yeah. We've seen a bunch of guys where it kind of just screws up the swing.
How's the big dumper looking these days for Seattle?
Yeah.
Don't break Jordan Walker.
Would it be fun Yes.
Sure.
Because, oh my God, that guy hits the ball hard.
And honestly, great for the Cardinals.
I think he would do it. I would hope that he doesn't just because of what you're talking about.
I'm not doing it.
We'll send Gorman.
Yeah.
Citizens Bank.
Send Gorman.
Heavenly, man.
No way. Final one here from the 801. In or out, we will see at least 3 more elite star NHL players request a trade this offseason. I'm out because
How many? 3? Jeez.
Well, you're going to have one who are, and I don't even know if people can call Dylan Larkin a star. He's a really, really good player. He's not even the number 1 center on multiple teams he could get traded to.
I think I would call him a star because wasn't he a high first-round pick?
Star, not a superstar.
No,
star.
I think star. Superstar, I agree. I would.
Yeah,
he's been a 30-goal scorer. He's the face of a well-known franchise.
Yeah, but
I think
bad
star.
franchise. I mean, he's a 15th overall pick.
I was thinking he was higher than that.
No, I mean, from the 2014 draft, he's 5th in goals. So, I mean, William Nylander, Sam Reinhart, Braden Point, David Pastrnak, Leo Draisaitl.
I think he's become a household name, though. And that's why I would say he's a star.
I think so, but I don't know if I view it as he is this bona fide star in the league. But, to their point, they're probably talking about, Matthews, McDavid. I'm out. I don't think we see anybody else notably that's requesting a trade in the NHL.
I'm with you. I'm out. I think maybe you see one more that surprises us and pops up. But for the most part, these typically stay behind closed doors.
Yeah,
it's really bad. It's really bad when it's leaked to the media. I mean, that was the same with the Vladdy situation, right?
This is probably because he's been trying to get out since that contract dispute, and they wouldn't move him. And he's like, fine, let's just end this.
3's a big number. I'm not going there. No.
Yeah, no. I mean, next year, maybe.
This isn't the NBA.
Next year, I can see Matthews.
See what you did there.
Next year, I could see McDavid. Yeah, next year I could see this happening, but no, not this year. That's in or out?
I got some breaking NFL news for you. I don't have
NFL news.
the numbers yet on this, but we have a new contract extension that has been signed.
All right.
Drake London has signed a contract extension with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have announced.
Or was it just a rumor?
I think it was a rumor. I don't think it had been official.
They needed to formalize it. Yes.
I don't. Whatever it is, it's an overpay.
What? You can't say that before you know the numbers.
Whatever it is, it's an overpay.
What? I mean, he's going to definitely be looking to get more than what Watson got.
Overpay. But nonetheless, some breaking news and a little bit of news in the NHL. Peter Laviolette is going to be hired as the next head coach of the LA Kings. So cross his name off of the. Did you see Toronto is considering Joe Pavelski as their next head coach, who is coaching his son's 15-year-old hockey team?
If you can coach that, you can coach the grown men.
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
It's the hockey version of the Mike Matheny move. No, really. It's in Chesterfield Valley.
Somebody said they were. Somebody said they were trying to do what Marty St. Louis did. Marty St. Louis, for those that don't know, never coached, just retired from the NHL, and then 7 years later was the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. That was that's a bold strategy, Cotton, but nonetheless, some interesting. So Laviolette hired with the Kings, and it sounds like Drake London not leaving the Atlanta Falcons. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Back to the Cardinals next, because now we're starting to hear some names pop up in the trade rumors. And if the Cardinals are buying, what does it look like at the deadline? We'll discuss that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards meet scuffling Mets tomorrow. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. On Tuesday in Flushing, St. Louis and New York kick off a 3-game series at Citi Field. Ollie Marmol's bunch just took 3 straight from Cincinnati. New York, meanwhile, occupying last place. UFL postseason, Louisville defeats the Battlehawks 29-20. Luis Perez finishing with 250 passing yards, but was intercepted as time essentially expired. Roundball-wise, Knicks Spurs will get center stage this evening. 101 ESPN has your tip-off shortly before 8 p.m. New York aiming for that 3-0 finals edge. This Sports Center update has been brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Last year was a very disappointing year for the Cardinals, and their fans were disenchanted. Disenchanted because the team lacked direction. Now they have a direction. We thought it was a rebuilding direction, and yet they're a contending team, and Chaim Bloom, in his first year as president of baseball operations, is going to face some interesting decisions at the deadline. I don't expect him to go all in, but he is going to be realistic, and if this team is in playoff position and they have justified going for some additional pieces, then he is going to do that.
That's Ken Rosenthal on foul territory from earlier today. As we're back here on BK and Ferrario, along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. So Ken Rosenthal, I guess, kind of eased the worry of some Cardinals fans from Bob Nightingale that took place. Maybe if it's even worry. To me, it was just clickbait, but I understand. Bob Nightingale put the piece out on USA Today talking about the Cardinals potentially being sellers. Now, the tweet that I saw was the Cardinals are indeed going to be moving Dustin May and JoJo Romero at the trade deadline. That doesn't really fill in everything that Bob Nightingale said. He essentially said the Cardinals, in fact, are expected to trade reliever JoJo Romero and starter Dustin May at the deadline, providing they slip further back into the wild card race. So, yeah, exactly what you'd think. They're going to sell if they're not a playoff team. But I think what Ken Rosenthal said is bigger news, because with the trade deadline still 2 months or, well, I guess a month and a half away, almost 2 months away, the Cardinals are right now as one of the top wild card teams. They're not going to catch the Milwaukee Brewers, in my opinion, so you're going to be jockeying for that wild card spot. The Cardinals aren't going to be viewed as the team that's going to go trade all of their minor league system to go get Tarek Skubal. But it sounds like, at least from Ken Rosenthal's perspective, they are going to be a team that won't turn up their nose to the idea of making moves to bring in some help at the trade deadline. And I guess for me, T-Bone, the part that I'm just stuck on is, to what degree are we talking about here? Because I don't foresee the Cardinals moving a majority of their top pipeline players to go out there and aggressively make their team a team that could push for a World Series. But I do think that if a move is correct and makes sense for the team to upgrade their roster now and make them better for the future, I think the Cardinals will absolutely buy at the deadline. They're not just going to turn away if this team is still in a wild card spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. What buying looks like for them, look, I agree with what Bob Nightingale said and Ken Rosenthal said there. They won't go all in, right? Like, they're not going to trade one of their top 10 prospects in their system. We're not going to see the news break across that Baez was traded to upgrade the roster.
Right.
But if you were to look at them and say, okay, maybe they trade someone in that like 20 to 30 range in their prospect pipeline, that's where I think they're looking. Now, what does that get you? Probably nothing extremely sexy, right? Like, maybe you're looking at like a middle relief bullpen arm that's like a rental, for example, or you're looking at maybe adding like a bench bat to try and help out. Maybe you try and look for a right-handed bat if Velasquez kind of cools off to help you out in your outfield. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing that's going to really alter the course of what this team's going to look like through a season, but it's going to be small incremental pieces that you can add in and try and help you. Like, for example, Blaze Jordan is a guy that is in this 10 to 20 range, or 20 to 30 range, according to MLB.com and their top 30 prospects. I could see where they say, you know what, we don't really have value for this guy here. Could we trade a Blaze Jordan for a reliever that's like a 4.5 ERA, but it's got decent swing and miss that maybe teams aren't valuing, and we think he could help us out?
Yeah.
I could see that kind of move. Where I find it interesting, and no one has seemed to say it, Bob mentioned it in his reporting that if they fall out of it, they would be trading May and Romero, which makes sense. My question is, are they going to do a little bit of both? Because I think you buy if you're in it, but I think you can make the argument you could sell little pieces as well. We'll trade him. We'll add Mott's to our bullpen. Maybe we'll go out and find another lefty that we like, and we'll add him to the mix as well. That's got maybe a little bit more control. We don't have to turn over a bunch of our prospect pipeline. And we really like this Dobbins guy, so maybe we trade May, and then we've got him in our rotation. And maybe that's what we do at the deadline. I find it more interesting if they're going to do both compared to what we typically say is, are you a seller or are you a buyer? I think it's the year that we've talked about with Heim in the past where when he was in Boston, he traded catcher Christian Vasquez. I think he got Willie Abreu in return in that deal. And then he also acquired Tommy Pham to try and help them. He did a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. I think right now that would be the most likely path that I think the Cardinals would be on.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Blaze Jordan. The other thing that they have a lot of is a catcher. I could see them move a catcher at this deadline to try and upgrade a certain area. That's the part for me where I look at it and I'd say, well, what areas need upgrading? Because if I'm the Cardinals, and I'm not looking at it as for this playoff run, I'm looking at it as for this playoff run and helps us make the playoffs again next year. I look at third base because you're looking to upgrade over Nolan Gorman, and frankly, I don't think there's internal options. You're looking at the bullpen because it's going to be worn down by the time you get there, and you're probably looking at the starting pitching side of things. But if you're also looking at the buy and sell scenario, I also have to wonder what the hot commodities would be, because I think JoJo Romero and I think Riley O'Brien, depending on what he looks like down the stretch, and those two pieces would be something that I could see the Cardinals saying, if we get something really decent in return, we could find some spots to fill there. But I don't think you're moving Lars Nootbaar at that spot, and I don't think you're moving Dustin May at that spot, because as much as I disagree with it, I think it comes down to what's the value you're getting in return, because if you're trading Dustin May, who's starting game one for you in the postseason? Because I think right now, Dustin May starting game one for me, Michael McGreevy starting game two, and then I could hear any argument you want to make for game three.
Yeah.
If you trade Dustin May, I'm fine with McGreevy starting game one. Who's two? Libby?
Probably.
And then Dobbins or Palante, three, unless you're upgrading that position.
Yeah.
So
and then game four would be like a bullpen game, probably.
Yeah, that's the part that
not ideal, but
I actually think it's probably more likely that you just buy, because there's areas in your pipeline that don't hurt you if you trade away. Now, are you getting something good in return? No, but can I trade a catcher? Can I trade a pitcher that's deeper down the pipeline? Could I trade a bullpen arm now to help me fix third base or the starting position?
I think the one that would be interesting would be JoJo, because at least with May, let's just run through some of these names that you brought up real quick in this buy-sell scenario. Dustin May has a mutual option, so you can pick that up. If he declines it on his end, okay, fine, we can attach the qualifying offer to him, and a minimum, he walks away, we get a first-round pick. With Riley O'Brien, there's more control on him, right? So you've still got control of him, so if you don't trade him, you can decide in the offseason what you want to do with him, or potentially trade him at next year's deadline. Same with Nootbaar. Yes, you have an internal replacement for him in Baez, but do you really want to put him in a pressure cooker situation of a playoff race to make his debut? Probably not ideal. But again, with Nootbaar, he's got more control, so I can handle that in the offseason. The one that doesn't is JoJo.
Yeah.
And he's the one where I could see where they say, you know what, do we have an internal replacement? Could we go to Mott's for the final 2 months and maybe put him in the bullpen? I don't think it's a coincidence they decided to keep him up here and have him come out of the pen that time in Cincinnati. Or do we maybe look and say, let's trade JoJo, get some assets back in return, and see if we can find like a rental as well, or another left-handed controllable arm, and give up some prospects for that? He's the one that would be very interesting, because you're not going to qualify and offer him, because that would be an overpay.
Yep.
So you would just be willing to lose JoJo for nothing at that point.
They got themselves in an interesting spot, but again, you got to build on it, and that's why I think the month of June they could really create some separation before a brutal month of July comes up with the schedule and the teams that they will be playing. Hey, join BK and 101 ESPN this Thursday from 3 to 5 at the Paymore in Maplewood. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore, great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. And this Thursday, you could get 20% off all in-store purchases. Plus, get entered to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood, and you could check out the Maplewood location located at 3212 Laclede Station Road this Thursday from 3 to 5 with BK and 101 ESPN. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com. We'll come back and rewind it next here on 101 ESPN.
The NBA Finals are on ESPN. Tonight, Spurs and Knicks. Pregame at 6:30. Tip-off at 7:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, next Friday morning, June 19th, TMA, along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard stations, are set to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. Support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken and the Happy Roof Company. Stop by the station next Friday morning because TMA will be heading downstairs to broadcast live out front in our parking lot from 7 to 11, collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items, handing out donuts from Donut Drive-In while supplies last, and everyone who stops by will have a chance to enter to win a $500 grand prize. Now is a critical time to support as summers see a big drop in food donations. So get your donations ready and bring them by next Friday morning, 7 to 11 with TMA and 101 ESPN out in front of Hubbard St. Louis, 11647 Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. For Tanner and Bradford, we'll be back tomorrow. The Fast Lane next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. Join me and 101 ESPN on Thursday from 3 to 5 o'clock at Paymore in Maplewood. They're new to the St. Louis area, and Paymore is a great way for you to sell, recycle, or buy electronics. And this Thursday, you'll be able to get 10% off all in-store purchases. That's right, 10% off of all in-store purchases at Paymore in Maplewood. Plus, you can enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open. They've got